Welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Friday, everybody. And we're a week away.
Man.
Notre Dame plays football next weekend. We
Next
are less
weekend.
than 23 hours. There's going to be a football game on our TVs.
One day from right now, 24 hours from right now, we're going to be in the middle of the second quarter of Kansas State. We're going to be in the middle of the second quarter of Farmageddon, Trevor.
Come on.
I mean, come on, man. We got football starts tomorrow. I've
sure
never been so excited to watch a Stanford-Hawaii game in my life as I am right now, brother. There's no doubt about it. Let's roll.
Well, you guys know how we get down here. It's Friday, which means it's the Friday free-for-all mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. So if this does happen to be your first mailbag, what you're going to do, this is something that we love to do for our live listeners. So if you want a question or comment set aside for Brian and I to discuss and answer and talk about, either put a little mailbox emoji next to your question or comment, or you can put MB for mailbag. That lets us know to set it aside. This is free for all. Now, ideally, we're sticking around Notre Dame, college football, recruiting topics, but it's kind of the last big one of the off season. So if we get a food question or if we get a question that's a little bit off topic, you guys can go ahead and throw one in too. But look, man,
both
last
got
one
the
of the
Ivy
offseason.
Nation shirts on, you know.
Oh, yeah,
like
we're
rocking and rolling. Before we dive into the actual mailbag, I did want to just quickly go over a couple quick things real fast. I had got a ton of people asking me about how my wife's doing, and lots of prayers and support. I got a text message this morning or DM this morning from Brandon Rouse, who listens to the show, and literally just typed out a prayer over Angela that I'll be reading to her when she wakes up today. So I really appreciate y'all. DJ asked the same question. She's doing good. Surgery went as well as we hoped for. Got everything out that they wanted to get out. Found something else in there. Got that out. Got a clean bill of health. And now it's just the rest and recovery. So she's up there taking a nap right now. My mother-in-law's in town to kind of help out, take care of her. But she's good. It went better. She's feeling better than we thought she was going to feel. She had got a lot of feedback about how rough the recovery is going to be. And it may, because she's still not 24 hours from when it was done. It's about 24 hours from when it was done. So some of the nerve, stifling stuff might be wearing off here today, but yeah, she's doing well and on the road to recovery. So thank you all so much for that. Also, wanted to go over our next week. We'll start our new content plan, sort of. Once we get into the season, Mondays we won't have shows, but we will have a show this Monday. And right now, I don't want to say it just yet, but I believe we're going to have a legendary Notre Dame player from the 1988 team on the show on Monday. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame-Miami rivalry. We're going to talk about that game. That's how we're going to kind of kick the week off, and then we'll go through our normal prep week. Trevor and Vince announced or started the spread option last night, which is our Thursday show. And a lot of awesome things planned. But Monday, we will have a show this Monday, even though once the games start playing, we won't have as many Monday shows. But, Trevor, I'm excited about it. And we start Miami week next week. It's going to be such a blast. But we do have one more Friday free-for-all. Actually, we're going to have two because we'll have a Friday free-for-all next week. That's probably next week because Notre Dame's game is on Sunday. But we're getting down to the end of when these things are happening. So I'm ready for Friday free for all mailbag.
Let's dive into it, man. If you want your question answered and bumped up to the top, you can always put in a super chat, which I believe
like Tyler Evans did.
Tyler Evans getting us started off. Appreciate the super chat, Tyler. Do you think the SEC moving to 9 conference games is a smart move and just shut the Big Ten up? And do you think this affects Notre Dame?
I don't think it was a smart move overall. I personally would like to see everyone go down a game. I've said this before. I think the best thing for the sport is for everybody to act. I actually think the SEC and ACC had it right in regard to the number of conference games. There's no way you could add 12 conference games and you're still going to have 5 teams that you don't play in the Big Ten and 4 teams you don't play in the SEC. It's not possible to have a balanced schedule with the way the leagues are now. So I don't think necessarily going to this does anything. If anything, I would argue that basically the SEC got punked by the Big Ten. I think this was always one of the things that Tony Petitti wanted. I've been told before that Greg Sankey wanted it ultimately, and then he kind of used the whole playoff format to kind of get his way. I'm curious how this is going going to go in the long run. But I don't think 9 games is where a conference size should be. I don't. I think it should be 8 games. And then I think the league should mandate what they do out of the league. Mandate 2 Power 5 opponents, 1 quality power. You want to, I think leagues could help with this by signing agreements with each other, which you and I have talked about before. You want to up it. Big Ten, SEC, you guys schedule a 3-year agreement or a 5-year agreement. Big 12 and ACC, you guys sign an agreement. Big 12 and SEC sign some sort of agreement where, hey, we're going to have this, this deal next year for the next however many years where, we kind of have our top 4 teams on an aggregate from the previous few, however many years they're going to play each other, then the next 4, then the next 4, then the next 4, something along those lines, and go that way. I think less like there's this notion of like the playoff committee announced that they're going to change how they do strength of schedule, which is basically them getting punked by the SEC. And as somebody made a great point, like they did include strength of schedule last year, which is why Alabama was ranked ahead of Miami, who had a better record. So that's already being factored in. You've just got all this whining, and the SEC they've had a rough offseason. They look like a bunch of crybabies. Tony Petitti basically punked the conference into going to 9 games. And it's I don't think it was a smart move. I would have said, hey, you guys want to play the same number of league games as us? Cool. Get rid of a game. You have 18 teams in your league. You're not playing everybody anyway. You're not even playing, like you're playing half the teams. Like there's very imbalanced schedules. Go to 8 and let's sign a deal, which the Big Ten and SEC have talked about doing. So let's do something like that. And let's do more of that. Let's give college football fans more intersectional games, right? More transcontinental games. That's what I want to see more of this season in college football is, hey, let's have the Big 12 and the ACC schedule a 3-year agreement where their teams are going to play each other at a conference. Let's do more of that. I think that's the answer. This to me doesn't necessarily do something.
No, I'm with you. Look, man, at the end of the day, you're just not going to get a good gauge of how good a team, like it's really hard to understand the pecking order of a conference when there's 18 teams in a league. It's just not. There's this idea that if you play 9 conference games, all 9 of your conference games will be at Penn State, at Ohio State, at Oregon, home against USC. That's just not the case. Because also to round out that conference, you also still have Northwestern and Rutgers and Maryland, and like it just doesn't happen.
Except for
way.
Wisconsin.
Oh well,
I think they got everybody.
Yeah, sure did. I mean, if I'm a team in the SEC, if I'm LSU this year, I'm mad. I'm mad as all get out. It's like, do you see what our schedule is this year? And now you want us to add another in-conference game?
Yeah.
All right.
You're punishing teams like LSU and teams like Auburn to a degree. You're punishing teams like Georgia, in my opinion, who already has a non-conference Power 5 every year opponent rivalry game. And look at who Georgia and LSU play non-conference almost all the time. There's years here and there where they don't play tough teams, but look what they do non-conference. All the time they're playing this team, this team, this team. So now you're looking at like Alabama, Georgia's got a future schedule where they've got to play Georgia Tech and Ohio State in a few years. And now they've got to, now it's like, okay, you're adding another conference game to our slate. It just, you're making the wrong decisions for the wrong reasons is my problem. And I just feel like if we were doing more and more of this playing against other leagues, we could say it. And I get so tired of this from the SEC as well. As a fan, I want better games, but all you focus on is the win-loss columns and you don't like it. I'm so sick of this coming from the SEC. So tired of this. There's only one league that could even had anyone with a 9-3 record get considered for the playoff. It's the SEC. If they were only looking at win-loss record, and that's all they were looking at, why is Miami not in the college football playoff? Why aren't you guys talking about Duke deserving a shot at the college football playoff? Why aren't we talking about, Illinois being in consideration? Why did Illinois not get any consideration last year for the college football playoffs? Why did they not get any consideration for it? Because, look, Trev, they were 9-3. They were 9-3 last year. So why aren't they in the conversation? Why is nobody complaining about BYU at 10-2 not getting into the college football playoffs? Why does nobody cry about that? If it's just about record, then why aren't we talking about Miami and BYU and Illinois and Duke and teams like that? That wasn't Syracuse 10-2 as well at the end of the regular season? Didn't they lose their bowl game, or did they win their bowl game?
They won their bowl game.
Did they beat Washington State?
In like a crazy.
So like Syracuse is 9-3 last year. Why didn't they get talked about? Why did Iowa State, who went 10-2 in the regular season and lost their SEC, the Big 12 title game, why are they not in it? Why are they not in it? So this notion that constantly get from SEC fans, well, y'all don't care about win-loss record. Yeah, we do. Which is why Tennessee was in the playoff at 10-2, because they're in the SEC. Winning and losing should freaking matter. This idea that losing to Vanderbilt shouldn't matter because we beat Georgia. Okay, you know what's funny? You would have been in with the loss to Vanderbilt. Alabama, you would have been in with also a loss to, who was the other team? They not before Oklahoma. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Tennessee. If you just would have lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee, you got beat by a 6-6 Oklahoma team that lost to Navy. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. You want better records, go. The committee last year said, if you play a strong schedule, you're going to get bumped, which is why Georgia, with 2 losses, was the 2 seed, because they had great wins. They got bumped because they had a great schedule. They weren't penalized for losing 2 games, which is why they were ranked where they were ranked. So this notion that, like, oh, you only care about winning and losing, that's kind of a big freaking deal in football games. Did you win or did you lose? And if you want better games, playing more of your own league does not guarantee better games. You want better games, you want to be able to have better evaluation of how good somebody is, go outside your league.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why that's my main pushback with this. I mean, just because you're adding another game in conference doesn't mean that it's going to be a better game. You think teams like Alabama and LSU and Texas and all those teams are banging down each other's doors to add them as their 9th conference game? No, what that's going to do is it's going to get rid of Texas traveling to Ohio State.
Right.
That's going to get rid of Alabama going to Wisconsin. That's going to get rid of LSU going to Clemson. So if you want better games, then you don't want this to happen.
And this is exactly what you're saying. BD, you're narrow-minded on this one. What about fans who pay for tickets and watch the games? This is a better product for the fans. Again, only SEC fans think this. Literally only SEC fans think that adding another SEC game all of a sudden makes it a better game. No, it doesn't. Because what if you're just adding another Vanderbilt or a Mississippi State to your schedule? Yeah. That doesn't make it a better game. Yeah. It doesn't make it a better game. Bama's not fans are like, oh my God, I'm so glad we got rid of that Notre Dame game in 2030 so that we can add Mississippi State or Vanderbilt or Kentucky to our schedule. That doesn't make it a better game. Adding another conference game doesn't make it a better game. You want a better game. You want better product. Here's what you do. Everybody plays 8 conference games and then starts. I've literally laid it out. Schedule crossovers with other leagues where you take an aggregate of the previous 3 to 4 years and you take your 4 best teams in the aggregate and they play each other. And then the next 4, the next 4, and the next 4. That's how you give them a better game. Not throwing Vanderbilt onto somebody else's schedule. Not throwing Mississippi State or Kentucky onto somebody's schedule. And then you're punishing teams like LSU. You're punishing teams like Georgia, Auburn, who always schedule tough non-conference games. And have in South Carolina, who already has Clemson as part of their non-conference schedule every year. You're punishing those teams. Do I need to add a 9th game onto Georgia's schedule to look at their schedule this and say, that's a darn good freaking schedule? Or like last year when they had Clemson? No. And you can say it's about the product. No, it's not. This is all about the playoffs. That's all this is about. If we didn't have a 12-team playoff last year, we're not crying about this stuff. We're not. It's not about the product. It's about getting better games. If you want to say that, cool. That's still not the answer to that. If it's about better games, it's still not the answer. Only people, I shouldn't even say it's only SEC people because Big Ten people say this. Only people who think their league's the only good league basically feel that adding more conference games all of a sudden fixes the problem of better games. They want better games, play better teams.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think Penn State schedule's catching so much flack? They play 9 conference games. It's because they're out of conference. They got FIU, Villanova, Nevada. Why do you think IU's been catching so much crap this offseason? It's because they're taking off all of the because they play 9 conference games in the Big Ten.
9 conference games last year, right?
Yeah, and so it's just
that's what
why.
Indiana had. Big 12 plays 12 conference games every year. Everyone beat down the door saying, "Oh, the best teams are in the Big 12." Now we enjoy Big 12 football, but most casuals don't.
Yeah.
Start having these crossover games, and we're going to have a different conversation. What do you think is going to draw more? Alabama having a 9th SEC game, or Alabama and USC getting locked up together because of the Big 10 SEC crossover?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're going to come at it from the perspective of, fans who pay for tickets would rather see SEC versus SEC, then I would go ask an Oklahoma fan, would you rather pay for a ticket to watch you guys host Michigan or to watch you host Kentucky? What would you rather pay to go see? I would ask an LSU fan, hey, what would you rather pay for? An LSU Clemson game and go see that game live, or LSU Mississippi State? I don't really think there's a contest there. I guess it comes down to preference, I suppose, but that's something that I'm just not going to see eye to eye on. If I'd rather spend my money on in conference than just a good matchup, because it's just that.
Yes.
Yeah.
This whole time we've been saying this, and the SEC person in the chat's getting all in their feelings because we're throwing it towards the SEC right now. We've said all along that this is how it's going to be. It's not good for the sport. The SEC should have held firm in 8 games. The part about we're going to mandate this, and this, that's all they should have done, is mandate at least, 2 games against other Power 5 teams or something like that. That's all they should have done. Screw you, Big Ten. I don't know who you think you are. Just because you won a couple titles the last couple of years, I don't know who you think you are. We're staying at 8 games, and we're going to ramp up. We're going to go with the ACC. We're going to schedule this deal. We're going to have more of our teams play Notre Dame. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. That's what the answer should have been, not another 9th game, a 9th game, and now following along with what the Big Ten does. Been very clear. They should all be at 8. And now the ACC is going to follow suit and go to 9 games. Who the heck wants to see more ACC games? That's definitely not what I don't want to see more of. That's definitely not going to improve the product. So I just give me 8 conference games, 2 games against other Power 5 teams or Notre Dame. No more FCS games. You want to make a better product? Do that. I don't need 9 conference games. Because now it's going to even more and more and more. Well, look how tough our schedule is. Well, okay, you played nobody out of conference, like Penn State's doing this year. That's a joke. We're going to get more of that as they change the strength of schedule metrics, and which is all slanted towards the SEC and Big Ten. You're going to get more schedules like Penn State and Indiana. That's what you're going to get, not more good games. You're going to get less good games because they're going to add a 9th conference game, which people just assume is going to be a good team because it's in the Big Ten or SEC. There's a lot of garbage in the SEC, a lot of garbage in the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12. There's garbage in every league, and teams are going to get more of the garbage by adding a conference game. And then you're incentivizing people like Penn State to go out of their conference and play. It's like Villanova. What's Penn State's schedule?
Villanova, FIU, and Nevada.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. And the funny thing is the SEC person in the chat's getting pissed off. We have praised multiple SEC teams for being willing to do what nobody really outside of the top schools, nobody outside of Ohio State is really willing to do recently, which is play tough out of conference games. Penn State rarely does that. And if they do, it's like Pitt, West Virginia, like that. They played Alabama over a decade ago, got smacked. And like they don't want any of that anymore. We're rewarding teams like that. We're rewarding that. That's not good for the sport. That doesn't create a better product. It creates a worse product. Hence, Indiana. Hence, Penn State's schedule. You're telling Georgia, don't keep scheduling like that, man. LSU, why are you scheduling Clemson? That's dumb. Don't do that. We're going to give you Arkansas. Well, actually, they already play Arkansas. Isn't that one of their rivalry games? So we're going to give you Mississippi State, drop Clemson. How does that make a better product? How does that make a better product? It doesn't. Our league is superior, so if we play more games against each other, that makes for a better product. No, it doesn't. The last part of his question was, do you think this affects Notre Dame? I do think it'll affect Notre Dame, not in the way some people think it will. I think it'll affect Notre Dame, and then I think you're gonna see some of these teams that have future games with Notre Dame possibly want to get out of it. Like, if I'm Alabama and I'm being told I got to go play another game, they may say, "Well, we got to play another game plus a group of 5 or P5 or Notre Dame." They may say, "We already got Notre Dame, so we're good." But others may look at it and say, "Well, we already like if you're Georgia, you may look at that Ohio State series down the road and say, well, we already got to play Georgia Tech, and we got to play another league game in our league. Now we also have to play Ohio State. We may want to get out of that." That may happen to Notre Dame with some of these teams that they have scheduled in the future. Like they have a game against Florida. They may say, "Look, we already got to play Florida State. Now we're having to play a 9th SEC game. We may want to get out of that game and go pick up in Northwestern, some P5 team that's not very good. We'd rather play Texas Tech or who's decent, but it's not Notre Dame. It's not Ohio State. It's not that." So I think it'll affect them in that regard. It's not one of those things where you're gonna naturally see once the ACC goes to 9, because they're going to follow suit. There's going to be this notion of, oh, now Notre Dame won't be able to play games anymore. Okay. I do wonder. Somebody brought this up on the board. I do wonder if this at all gives Clemson pause for their series against Notre Dame. Because now they've got 9. If they go to 9, they're going to have 9 conference games plus South Carolina plus Notre Dame. Like, does that make Clemson pause for at all about that rivalry? That I'm curious about.
Yeah, potentially. I just don't think that teams in the ACC, Clemson specifically, view their conference the same way that other Big Ten teams or SEC teams view their conference. I think they have a more realistic look of, it's the ACC. There's some good quality opponents in here, but, let's call a spade here. I mean, half of our conference games are Wake Forest and, Florida State last year wasn't any good. And, a good Louisville team is like an 8-9 win team. And so it's I think they have a more realistic view on their schedule, not, Big Ten fans or not like how some SEC fans are. So.
Good way to start the show.
Yeah.
Some intensity. I love it. Zach Martin with Super Chat. You play to win the game. Thank you.
Handle business.
Yes.
Super Chat in here from Philip Mateus. Sorry if I butchered that last name, Philip, but appreciate your Super Chat regardless. What are your thoughts on the Notre Dame defensive line versus the Miami offensive line? I feel like Notre Dame could win that matchup, even though everyone is hyping up Miami's offensive line like crazy.
I think Miami has a very good offensive line. I think, Trev, you and I both ranked them in the top 10 nationally when we did our O-line rankings this offseason. I have Francis Maunoa as a second-team preseason All-American. If you want to put him as a first-team preseason All-American, totally good with that. He's a very talented player. Their right guard's 350 pounds. Their center, James Brockington, has played a lot of football. So, it's a talented line. Their left tackle's a massive kid, too. He's a pretty talented player. He was a JUCO transfer last year, split a lot of time with Jalen Rivers, but he's also a guy that I think I wonder. The right guard's Inez Cooper, who's the kid I was talking about, the real big kid. But their left tackle, who's right now, name is escaping me, so I'm pulling up their depth chart. Markel Bell is a big kid. I think if you get into a 6'9", 340. Their right guard, Inez Cooper, is he is 6'6", 350.
Yeah.
Francis Maunoa is the little guy of the offense of their big guys. He's at 6'6", 315. Yeah. Their left guard and center are actually small. They're both sub 300 pounds, but those guys are big. If you're just going to get into a little in tight box street fight with those guys, you might not win that. But where Notre Dame has the advantages, they have this, in my opinion, the athleticism advantage, the speed advantage against those guys. You've got to use that, to attack them. You don't just come up and say, "Hey, we're going to 2-gap against these guys," because we're going to get whipped. You know, those guys are just too big and too strong. What you do is we're going to slant. We're going to come at them. We're going to use our athleticism to get around the edge. We're going to do twists and stunts to try to get them to have to flip their hips and turn their hips and do things like that. So I think Notre Dame has some things they can do to win against Miami. If they get caught in a tight quarters, you know, fist fight type of thing, then they're going to be in trouble, because that's where Miami wants you. And so that's what's going to come down to, is finding ways to get to the edge against that group, which then allows you to have success with your athleticism. There's another question about this later that we'll get to, Trevor, that involves the size of the two lines, but we'll have that conversation later. But I think it's going to be a great matchup. It's one of the matchups, Trev, that's going to have a big impact on the outcome of the game. And I'm totally fine with people hyping up Miami's offensive line. Like, what I don't do is, well, yeah, everybody's hyping up their line. Notre Dame's going to kick their butts. They're not that good. Well, yeah, they are. And by downplaying it, you're actually taking away from Notre Dame if they have success. And so our team was never that good anyway. Yeah, they were. Penn State wasn't even that good. Yeah, they were, which is why it was such a tight game. Their fans may be terrible, but that football team was pretty good. And so this is a very good offensive line. And if Notre Dame is able to hold their own in this game or win that battle, that's going to tell us that this defensive line is everything we thought it should be. It could be. So it's a very good offensive line, Trev. And you know, at certain things, they're excellent. At other things, they're not as good. Like a lot of teams, not everybody's great at everything. Notre Dame has to find ways to exploit them in the areas where maybe they're not quite as good.
Yeah, I agree. The right side of their offensive line, I think, is definitely the strength with Inez Cooper and Francis Maui-Noa. Markel Bell's very long. I think he has kind of tight hips a little bit, but he's 6'9", 340. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to look like, you know, Joe Ald at 315 pounds. You know what I mean? So, but no, it's a good offensive line, man. It's definitely going to be a tough matchup for him. But this is another reason why I like Notre Dame adding size to their D-line this offseason as well. So I think it'll pay dividends. It's a good question, Philip. Super chat from Patrick Gisuele. Appreciate the super chat, Patrick. IB team just joined. Is Angela well? Hope she's okay. I prayed many, many times. I hope it helped.
I appreciate that, Patrick. And since he did just join, he probably has since heard the update that we had. But yeah, she's upstairs resting and on the road recovery now. And I really, really appreciate the super chat. And even more so, I appreciate the prayers. And she was very well aware of it, of all of the prayers, and it definitely helped calm her spirit and helped her to be watched over during the surgery. So we appreciate that very, very much. Very, very much.
Question from Aidan Benami. Why did Elijah Golden move from IMG to Cardinal? Rare to see people leave IMG.
I don't know the backstory. I think part of it is with some of these guys, there's just too many players there. You're not getting the reps. You're not getting the work. Maybe you're not getting the push. You know, some people view it's better to be a backup at IMG than a starter somewhere else. Well, that's true if you're just talking about getting recruiting recognition. But if you're talking about getting developed, there's nothing better than playing. And so that would be some of the reasons why I think, but I don't know the reasons why. You actually do see a number of people leave IMG when they go there early. A lot of guys go there senior year, junior year. Elijah went there freshman or sophomore year. And so I think that factored into it as well.
From Muhammad Abdi, Brian, based on your experience, was there any benefits in expanding playoffs other than recruiting at the D2, D3 level? And what number of teams is ideal for inclusion, in your opinion?
Well, I don't the D2 and D3 level, it's really apples to oranges, because I think D2 only plays 11 games and D3 they only play 10 games. So that's a little bit of a different situation than D1, where you play 12 games. You might have to play a conference championship game, things like that. So I think it's a different situation altogether. So I don't know that it really compares to a Division I thing. So I've said all along what I think is the ideal scenario. And Trevor, I don't know if you've ever actually commented on this, because I said this before you joined Irish Breakdown, but I've always said go back to the old bowl system. and go back to the tie-ins. Have the Rose Bowl be Pac-12 versus Big Ten, if that was still a thing. Have the Sugar Bowl be the SEC champ. And then after that, then take your top 4. Because now it is kind of a playoff, but it's not so much 1-8, 2-7. It's more so the old system. And then the top 4 teams will most likely separate. And there is a chance if you're number 7 or 6 or whatever to jump into the top 4, depending on, hey, we were 7, we played 2, we beat their butts. That jumped us into the top 4 because number 4 also lost, or number 5 also lost, or whatever. And I think that's what I think would be the best way to where your goal at Ohio State is one thing and one thing only: get to the Rose Bowl. Because if you don't get to the Rose Bowl, you're not going to be playing for the national championship, or your odds are much tougher to play for the national championship. And then play your bowls and then pick your 4. That's what I've always thought would be the best way to go. If you're not going to do that, I mean, I'm comfortable with 12. I'm okay with 16. I think 8's probably too small, especially in this era of NIL where the talent is spread out more. My argument against 8 and 12 used to be, Trevor, there's dominant teams at the top. There's never a team that's going to be 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th. I mean, the only example we could point to back in the day was that 16 USC team, where you really had a team outside the top 5 or 6 that had a legitimate chance to win it. I think that's increased now that you have the talent being spread out a little bit more. I think there's now more teams that have a chance. So I don't know that 8 is necessarily the same type of cutoff. I like the idea of 12. If you're not going to reward conference champs with a bye, then I think 16 probably makes the most sense in that regard. And then just go to a straight seeding. But I personally would say go to 16 and get rid of the title games, the conference title game. There's no need to play the conference title games anymore in a 16-team playoff. You're only hurting yourself as a league. Like, looking at it from the SEC, Big Ten, ACC standpoint. So last year, if Georgia and Texas don't play, you say, okay, well, that doesn't really have a big change in maybe where the ranking is, because Texas was 2 and Georgia was 5 going into the last week, and then when Georgia beats Texas, Georgia goes up to 2, Texas falls to 3. Okay, so like in that instance, maybe it helped you. And then you look at other leagues and you're like, well, in this instance, I think it hurt the league to have that. And so that's kind of where I come from on it, Trevor, is I just say that get rid of the conference championship game. Texas is going to be in, Georgia's going to be in. But where I would say it hurt Texas, so you say it maybe helped the league a little bit, but what was the biggest thing to come out of that game? It wasn't, oh, Texas can't do this or Georgia can do this. It was Georgia didn't have their quarterback anymore. That's what all Georgia fans kept saying, the reason they lost Notre Dame. And I'm not even trying to say that as throwing shade. That's a valid thing. I've only said I don't think it impacted the game at all. I'm not going to say that it doesn't make your, like, I'm not one of those people like, oh, they were better with Carson Beck or Gunnar Stockton anyway. I think they matched up better against Notre Dame with Gunnar Stockton because of his mobility. But what if they got a different matchup where they needed to drop back and throw it more to win the game? I'm just like, there's just a lot of things like that, Trevor, I look at and say, that hurt you. That hurt that football team playing in that game. And I just like, what did Penn State gain by playing against Oregon in the playoff? Other than giving one more game of data for Notre Dame to evaluate when they went to game plan for them. Just get rid of the conference championship games and go to 16. That's what I would do. We don't need to have it playing games or 3 versus 6. We don't need any of that. You play your 12 games. And then now, if you do that, you can start the playoffs a little bit sooner. You don't have to take as much time. You can maybe get a round or 2 in before the NFL playoffs start. And that's what I would do. So if you're going to go past 4, Trev, I'd say go to 16. What say you?
I'm still a fan of the 12, if I'm being honest with you, because I don't think there's a world where the 15 or 16 seed is realistically going to win a national championship. I do think that there could be some world where maybe like a 9 or a 10 ranked team, now that they're going to straight seeding, could make a push if they catch fire. I just don't see that in a 15 to 16 league. And that's just my personal opinion, but it would be to make it bigger, to make more money. And at the end of the day, that's kind of the driver of what this is. And I can acknowledge that fact, but if we're talking about an actual good quality content of playoffs, I mean, if you go 1 through 16, if let's just say they did it this year. If per my projections, if an undefeated Clemson team is going to go play the 16th ranked team in the country, which could end up being an Iowa State, I just don't think that's a good game. I don't. And so, yeah.
I asked this question, a follow-up question. You said you don't think a 15 or 16 can win at all, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're capable of a first-round upset? 13 to 13. It's really 13 to 16. Do you think those teams are capable of first-round upsets? So I'll give you a specific example, Trev, because it's really hard to do that when you're just thinking like, okay, randomly with no context. So let's just look at last year. Do you think there's a world in which 13 Ole Miss could have beat 14 Notre Dame, or see here would have been 14 South Carolina could have beat number 3 Penn State, 15 Arizona State, almost beat number 2 Texas. Actually, I'm giving you the week 15 rankings. Let me give you the final rankings. I'm sorry. 13 Miami would have played, what would that would have been? 116, 215, 3, 4. It'd be 413, right? Where number 13 Miami could have beat number 4 Penn State, or number 14 Ole Miss could have beat number 3 Texas, number 15 South Carolina could have beat number 2 Georgia, or number 16 Clemson could have beat number 1 Oregon.
Possible, potentially. Yeah.
Potentially. Like they're that so my thing is, to me, that's no different than can 12 beat 1? Or you know what I mean? Like that's where only thing I'd say is I think you get past, even in today's era, you get past 8, 9, 10. Like last year, I would say 9 and 10, 8, 9, and 10 last year were Indiana, Boise State, SMU. 11 was Bama, 12 was Arizona State. 13, like none of those teams had the ability to go on a run. I would actually argue that teams that had the best chance to go on a run were the teams that were ranked lower, just because they were talented, but they were very inconsistent teams. If they get hot, who knows? So that might be my only counters, because your 12 team's not going to win it either. It's most likely going to be some group of 5 team. So
no, that's fair. In my mind, I could just see a 12 upsetting a 5 more than I could see a 16 upsetting a 1.
Sure. Would you be, and I don't know how the math would work out, but would you be okay with it in a scenario where you still had some buys? Like, again, I don't know exactly how it would work out, but like if you'd have to give 4 buys or 8 buys or something like that to try to maybe create, because like the winner of the 5, if the 12 upsets a 5, they ain't going on a run all the way.
Sure.
To your point, what about something like that? We'll get rid of the conference championship games 2 weeks after the regular season's over. You've got some sort of thing where let's say, just trying to think of the math, I don't know how you'd make it work, but like the top, I don't know, 6 teams got buys, and then there's 5 games in round 1 of some sort of seeding. Would you be okay with that in the 16-team playoff?
Yeah, that I could. Yeah, because I could see what would that be, like a 15 seed upsetting I guess a
6
7
or something. Because what you're basically trying to say is you like the idea in a 12 team where, yeah, that team's not going to win at all, but at least they have a shot to win a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Yeah.
So,
and in a straight 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, those things are rarely going to happen.
Yeah.
They will happen, though. I mean, they will happen, but to your point, I don't know that those teams are going to be able to go on runs. Yeah, we'll see. I do miss the old bowl system, though. And I'd be curious. You don't really have much affinity for the old bowl system, do you? Because you kind of grew up in an era where bowls just stopped really mattering.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs started 2014.
Yeah,
started 2014. So,
you were 17.
Yeah. I was a senior in high school. I mean, I don't know. I guess my question for the bowl system would just be how would you handle like at-large bids? Because if you have like the conference tie-ins to bowl games, and then those teams play to then go into the 14 playoff, how would Notre Dame fit into that? Or how would like if you're like the 3rd place team in the Big Ten? I mean, we watched the 3rd place team in the Big Ten last year win the national championship. So would they get to go into one of these 4 bowls?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my question about it. But
good stuff. We have some super chats, Trevor, that have popped up. Had super chat from Robert Burke, and then he followed up with another one. And here we go. And then he has a follow-up to this as well, Trev, that I'll pull up after we answer this question.
Yeah, you got it. Appreciate it, Robert. How hard are RPOs for a quarterback to read and execute?
It depends on the quarterback. And I'll explain it because this isn't a cop-out, Robert, because it's like with a lot of things. Not everything is the same for every quarterback. There are quarterbacks who read certain concepts well and some that don't read things well. You and I were talking last week about, there's concepts that you're going to run for. It was actually earlier this week. It feels like forever ago. It was when we were doing what would a CJ Carr offense look like. And we were talking about, you're now that you've got your starter, you're going to start to tailor things to him. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's certain concepts he's just more comfortable with than Kenny Minchey. And there's concepts that you maybe ran more in camp because maybe Kenny Minchey's more comfortable with that than CJ Carr and vice versa. We heard things last year where just after Mike Denbrock had some games under his belt, he just knew there were things that Riley read better and threw better than what they wanted to run. So the offense evolved and changed after the more time he had Riley in the system. And so that's true for every quarterback. I may read smash very well and Trevor doesn't. We both played quarterback. Trev may read 4 verts against cover 3 and incredibly well, but I don't. I can hit the 2-hole throw, but I have a hard time reading cover 3 because I don't see the safety as well, or I don't see I see the safety, but I don't see the squeeze corner in cover 3 very well, because the way that you defend 4 verts in cover 3, one of the ways is obviously the quarterback can read you can read the quarterback's eyes. One way is to really get good, hard, like reroute vertical runs by your hook curl defenders. So basically, if I'm a hook curl defender and I got a number 2 running on a vert against me, I'm not breaking off or it's a curl flat defender. I'm not breaking off to the flat until someone presents themselves to the flat. So if I just get pure 2x2, 4 verts, I'm riding that inside seam. That's one way. The other way is you play inside alignment with your corners. And if you got good rangy corners, when you see that seam ball get thrown, they squeeze down on the seam ball. The play where Hunter Renfrow caught that seam late in the first half against Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl in 2018, that's what didn't happen. So a lot of people thought Alohi Gilman got beat on the play, but in fact, the corner was supposed to squeeze down, and he never did. So that's why it looked like he thought he had help over the top. So he was trying to take away part of the throw, and the corner never squeezed down. So so I may see that. I may not. Trev may see that great. I don't. Whereas I may read smash because I can read that flat defender real well and the safety real well, where Trevor just gets so locked in on the downfield corner that he will throw more interceptions or incompletions against that underneath corner. Whereas I'm getting picked off or getting balls broken up by that field corner who's squeezing down because I just don't see that guy very well. Or I read the curl flat to the corner real well, but I just can't get over it. I don't judge the safety real well. There's all types of things that some quarterbacks read better than others, and RPO is one of those examples. And because it's just another thing where because it happens so quick that some guys just don't read it well, or they read it well, but then they can't get their body to quickly get into the throwing motion and accurately throw the football. That's the other thing. So like when I was a quarterback, we moved to a triple option team my junior year of college. Couldn't read it. I'd never done it. I couldn't read the triple. I couldn't read this and give. I just always wanted to keep it. That was kind of my go-to because I couldn't read it. So if I can't read it, I'm just going to keep it. And I could read a lot of things. Pick your part, throwing game and all that, but I couldn't read a defense in the triple. I wasn't comfortable with it. Now part of it was experience, but I don't know that I ever would have been very comfortable with it. And so it's the same thing here. And then some guys will read certain routes better than others do. They may read the pull, the give pull well, but then they don't see a certain defender on the throw. So as I said, Robert, it just depends on the quarterback. It depends on the route combination. It depends on the route package. There's just a lot of things that factor into it. And then he asks, is CJ Carr likely to be good at it? I think he'll be solid at it, at least early on. And I think eventually he'll be really good at it. That's what I think.
Well, I hope so. Right now, his over-under on FanDuel for passing yards against Miami is set at 190.5. So here's to hoping that he's good at it.
What are your thoughts on that, Trev? following up on last night's show.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to kind of sneak because I know you guys are going to talk about this game next week. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a little sneak preview for next week, I guess you could say. I like it. I think that Notre Dame is going to be in a position where they need to push the ball down the field because it's going to be no secret what Miami's going to try to stop and who they're going to try to stop on defense. They're going to load the box and try to stop the run game. And so there's going to be moments where CJ is going to have to let it go downfield, and now he has the personnel to do it. I like the over in that game, and I'm not speaking about that biasly. I just think per the flow of the game, I think that Notre Dame will have to push the ball down the field. May or may not be one of my player props that I talk about next week. Maybe.
Got another super chat from Rainy Days 5.
Appreciate the super chat. How will the 2025 Notre Dame versus Miami matchup echo the intensity of their storied Catholics versus convicts rivalry from the late 1980s? Give me a player from Notre Dame who will have that 80s toughness.
I don't know that it. Thank you for your super chat, Rainy Days. I don't know that it won't match that intensity because there's just not the same. There's just not the same aspect to it. I mean, you got to remember in 1988 when Notre Dame played Miami, they had played every year for several years coming into that point in time. So like that particular rivalry, if you look at 88, they started playing in 71 and they played every year from 71 until 1990 was the last year. So they played in 71, 72, 6, 7, 8, 9, 80, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so they played every year. So by the time they played in 1988, they'd played for 17 years. That rivalry had been going on for 17 years. And it had been back and forth. Notre Dame dominated it early. They won every game from 1971 to 1980. Notre Dame won every game and dominated most of those games. They won 17-0, 20-17, 44-0, 38-7, 32-9, 40-27, 48-10, 20-0, 40-15, 32-14. And then 1981, Miami won, and then they went on to win 5 of 6 and dominated Notre Dame. Won 37-15, won 20-0, 31-3. The infamous 58-7 game in 85. I'm sorry, they did not play in 86. I didn't notice that. They didn't play in 86. And then in 87, Miami beat Notre Dame down in Miami 24-0. So, like, there had been a lot of, 85, 86, 87, 88. So, like, Mark Green, Frank Stamms, Wesley Pritchett, probably Pat Terrell. No, he was a junior on that team. Andy Heck, Ned Bolkart. Was Ned Bolkart Jr. on that team? No, he was a junior. He would have not been a senior. Dean Brown, Tony Rice, a lot of the guys that were seniors or fifth-year seniors in the team were part of that 85 team. They got embarrassed 58-0 where they were running up. They accused Miami of running up the score. There was a lot of anger and hatred because of that. Miami had tried to intimidate them before. Notre Dame players talked about, we were ready for them to try to run through our line. Like, that's what Miami would do. They would run through stretch line to try to intimidate you. Notre Dame players were waiting on it. I don't see that happening here. And so I just don't think it's going to – that was a hatred between those two programs. I don't know that you have that now. I don't think they necessarily like each other, but do they even know each other? They haven't played – like the last time they played, I'll give you – here's an example. The last time that they played a game, a freshman on this team for Notre Dame would have been just coming out of elementary school. Just don't think it has that same angst. And I don't know that they have a lot of familiarity with Catholics versus convicts outside of, what's on TV. And I don't know that it behooves Notre Dame's coaching staff to like bring back a bunch of players from 88, 89, and 90 to stoke that same hatred. I don't know if that's the way to get you into the mental space to go down there and win this football game. I think it's about, hey, we don't need all that because this football team is standing between us and our ultimate goal of a championship. And we can't get there if we don't handle business on the 31st. But the last part, give me toughness from that team, absolutely. But I do think that this team has several guys like that. I've never done this, but I would think, and this is a complete assumption, and if Wesley Pritchett hears this and doesn't agree with me, then he can hit me up on Twitter because we follow each other on Twitter. But I would imagine if Wesley Pritchett and I were sitting down watching film of Drake Bowen, he'd be like, that kid could have played with me. You know what I mean? Like, he would have respected that because Wesley Pritchett was a physical, like, tough dude. So was Michael Stonebreaker. So was Ned Bolkar. I think they'd have watched a guy like him and been like, I'd play with that guy. Like, I'll go to battle with that guy. You know, heck yeah, man. So I think there's plenty, Jeremiah Love, watching him tough out in the playoffs. Like, that's a guy that I can go to battle with.
Schuler.
Don Schuler. That's another great one. Leonard Moore, as physical as he. I mean, I think there's guys like that on the team. Josh Burnham, Junior Chulamaka. There's plenty of guys like that. And I think that's one of the things I like about this team. And that team had to learn that, like a lot of teams do. Notre Dame had to learn that. The things we're talking about was not evident necessarily in the first couple games of last year. Those guys had to learn that. And that's that mentality that Marcus Freeman and his staff had to instill in them. It just, some guys show up with it, but then you get to college football and you're like, I don't know about that. You got to make sure that you're harnessing that. And this staff has done a good job of that. And the leadership of the team last year did a good job of that. Eventually, let's see if this leadership can do a better job of having them ready to play early in the season, maybe than they were last year. It's a great question.
Another super chat from Beefeater ND08. Appreciate the super chat. Any chance Notre Dame goes up tempo with a less mobile quarterback?
I'm going to assume that he doesn't mean like not mobile quarterback, but just a guy that's not a runner like Riley and the perception of what Kenny would have been. It's possible that they may run some up tempo, but I don't know that it's going to be because in any way CJ's not mobile. Like less mobile. I mean, I'll grant your premise of he's less mobile than Riley Leonard. So hey, I'm not saying he's not athletic, and I don't think Beefeater is. I'm not saying he's not athletic, but he's not the mobile guy like Riley Leonard is. Okay, spot on. Great analysis. So is that going to result in them doing more up tempo? I don't think so. I don't think they have to do that. I don't think going up tempo necessitates that. If anything, slowing down the tempo may be better. So you help them get a better sense of the pre-snap reads and get into a flow, and you're going to still run the football. You're going to move the pocket a little bit. You're going to take some shots down the field. It might be good to slow it down a little bit for him. The reason that you would go up tempo, there's really only two reasons to go up tempo against Miami. One is this is a bunch of new players learning a brand new system. So we're going to go out there and push the tempo and make them have to make fast decisions and communicate quickly, which then increases their mistakes. And then the second reason is usually when you're running tempo, your decision-making by your young quarterback is lessened. And it's more so one quick read, throw here. If it's not there, take this. And so that may be those would be the two reasons to do it. And they kind of both go together, honestly. So I'd have no problem if Notre Dame wanted to come out and not like for a full game, but maybe that drive one or maybe drive 2 or 3, or they have some things built in where, hey, we're gonna change the tempo because of who we're facing and why we're facing them. I think those would be more reasons to do it as opposed to somehow needing to adjust because he's not as mobile as what Riley Leonard was.
Yeah, I think you're going to see up tempo regardless, no matter what the mobility of the quarterback is. I mean, last year we saw routinely after they would pick up a first down, they'd get into a tempo style of offense back up to the line immediately. Or if they were in 3rd and short, like a favorable down and distance for them, they'd hustle up to the line and get a play snapped and ready to go, not let the defense adjust. So I think you're going to see that a little bit this year anyways. Another one from Iden. Stroman has more experience, but who's more athletic? Jalen Stroman or Luke Talich? Tay obviously is more athletic than both, but by how much?
It's significant. His athleticism advantage is significant. Luke Talich and Jalen Stroman, they're different type of athletes. I think that Luke is more of the long, rangy athlete. I think there's a little bit more suddenness from Jalen Stroman. I think neither of them are like elite at flipping their hips. They're similar athletes overall. I'd probably give the short area quickness edge to Stroman. I'd give the range to Luke Talich. I think Bronte does all of it better than they do athletically. Now, part of being a great athlete, or being a great athlete's part of the conversation. But I've said a million times, if you're a great athlete, if you're a 4.4 and he's a 4.6, but the 4.6 guy knows exactly what's happening and is decisive and makes quick reads, he's still going to play faster than the 4.4 guy who's like, uh-oh, they just went in motion. What was I supposed to do again when they did that? Like that. So part of it, it's that, and that's where the experience comes into play. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been told about fall camp is Jalen Stroman has come on very strong the deeper we've got into camp and the more reps he's gotten in the system. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him than maybe we thought we would have seen when we saw the first day of fall camp when he was the number 2 behind Don Schuler. So I think we'll see. But all 3 of those guys are going to play. And I've heard Luke Talents is having a great camp as well. Like, I haven't heard any of those guys. The only thing I've heard, well, I won't say what I've heard on the show like this, but I've heard nothing but positives about all the safeties. So I think that's not a position that Notre Dame necessarily, from what I've been told, has a whole lot of angst about going into that game.
No, I mean, Marcus Freeman said it in his press conference about the safety battle. I mean, he said that all 4 of them alongside of Don Schuler are going to play in some capacity. It's promising.
Now, they could all play because nobody's separated and nobody's playing well, so you're going to need all 3. Or they're all going to play because we have 4 guys can help us and play. Yeah. And to Trev's point, I think the reason that Marcus Freeman said that is more of the positive reason, not the just try and figure it out reason that it could also mean.
Patty O Furniture. Given Bryce Young's stature and lineage, does his future lie inside? Would that be a good thing? The depth chart inside could potentially get thin next year.
I've had people ask. We've had this question asked a few times, Patty, and the answer for me is it just depends if his body grows into that. Like right now, Bryce Young's about 6'7", 270. I think is what he's listed at on the Notre Dame depth chart. That's not even close to being an interior player on a first and second down base defense standpoint. And like right now, I mean, I expect him to be a starting defensive end for Notre Dame. And I don't think that should facilitate that. When Riley Leonard moved inside, he was 290 plus pounds. And he was a couple inches shorter than Bryce Young. So I think the lineage has more to do with the athleticism, the explosiveness, the power, things like that. Now, to your point, Patty, if by next season we go into next spring and Bryce is 285 and maybe not quite as twitchy because of the extra weight, now it's like, okay, now move him into 3 technique because that twitchiness is now going to play up as a 3 technique than it was a defensive end. I think you just let his body do that. Now, they're not in this instance, this isn't me saying they're going to push 285 on him. This is just being in the strength program, being in the nutrition program. They can't keep the weight off. That happens sometimes. Like, look, we didn't want that guy to be 290 pounds. He wasn't eating bad, but we kept trying to keep it off of him. But his body was like, the more he was in the weight room, just the thicker he got and the more physically strong he got, and the more he kept putting on weight, we couldn't get enough weight off. We had to like lower his calorie intake or his caloric intake, or we had to lower his, lessen his strength because, his workouts, because he just kept putting more weight on. In that instance, you say, we're going to move you inside. We're not going to fight that hard to keep the weight off. The other side is we want to get him up to 290. So we raise his caloric intake. We push him in the weight room in a way that adds the weight because you want to move him inside. Those are 2 different things. I don't think they're going to do either of those with Bryce. I think they're just going to let his body develop naturally and see where it ends up. That's my take. And it could potentially be thin next year. You're going to have Heinisch back. You're going to have Elijah Hughes back. You're going to have Sean Sevillano back, Armel Mukam back, Davian Dixon back. I think we'll see Chris Burgess move inside. You're going to obviously Tiki Hole and Elijah Golden show up. So it's going to be thin on experience. I don't know that I would necessarily say it's going to be super thin. And I just think that if they feel that way, instead of moving Bryce Young inside, like you go to the portal. Yeah. Or maybe by then Cole Mullins is 290 and you move him inside. I mean, those are all potential options. Brendan Vernon also is a guy that we should mention that I forgot to mention. But I think you'd see that. The only way I think they move Bryce inside is like, guys, we're not pushing his weight, but he's 289 now. And it just, it can't keep it off. His body's just screaming, I want to be 300 pounds. Then you move him inside and let him become a first-round draft pick at 3 technique. But I don't think you force the issue. And right now, to put him inside in base downs, you'd be forcing the issue with his game and his body. Is that agreement? Same page on that one, Trev?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it happens naturally, it happens naturally. But I don't think that he's a player that should go through a workout regimen to make him 290 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Personal preference. Because look, I know you can look on a roster and say, yo, Bryce Young's up to 270. When you're 6'7", that 270 doesn't look the same as when you're 6'4". Just doesn't. Like you're put together differently. So if it happens naturally, I'm cool with it. I don't want the issue forced.
Yep. Speaking of D-line, this is the question earlier I was referring to about that. So I want to get to this one from Iden.
Will Notre Dame's lack of size on the D-line, but their fast and burst of speed overcome or be tough for Miami's big offensive line? Could it cause them issues? KVA, show us that bend.
I think that's kind of, and I like how he put lack of size sort of in air quotes, because, again, I don't know that Notre Dame necessarily has a severe lack of size. We just got done talking about how one of their defensive ends that we anticipate starting for them is 6'7", 270 pounds. I'm actually going to pull up Notre Dame's roster and get accurate measurements. So you can find that on the Irish Breakdown board. So let's go to the roster. You've got Bryce Young, who's now number 95. I still miss number 30. I don't know why they switched to 95. I kind of like the 30. He's 6'7", 271. The other starting end, who I project to be starting end, is 6'4", 250. Your 2 rotation guys at defensive end who are going to play a ton. One 6'4", 260. The other 6'2", 255. The guy that we've heard all off season is their best interior guy, 6'5", 302. He's going to play a lot. Obviously, Donovan Hinish is undersized at 6'2", 277. But the other guys in the depth chart, Jared Dawson is 6'1", 288. He looks bigger than that. He just does. Gabriel Rubio is going to play a ton. He's 6'5", 321. So I don't think size is a huge issue for them. Now, compared to Miami, okay, yeah, their left tackle 6'9", 340, and their right guard 6'6", 350. Oh, yeah, I mean, they're big guys. Everybody's small compared to them. But I would argue in matchups where 320-pound Gabriel Rubio is going up against Miami's left guard, Ryan Rodriguez, if he wins the job, or their center, James Brockermeyer. Now, Ryan Rodriguez is 6'2", 275, and James Brockermeyer is 6'3", 295. That's advantage Notre Dame in size. So it just depends on the matchup. But to his point, it's about how do you overcome that size, beat it with speed, beat it with leverage. You can't just always run around it either. But if I'm a 6'4" guy and I'm going up against a 6'9" guy, I'm going to try to get up under his pads, and I'm going to try to lift him up and drive him into where he can't settle his feet, and then get rocked back. So that would be kind of my answer to that. But you're also using your athleticism, because I've beat him outside with speed moves a couple times, so that gets him really sinking into his pass set on his heels. Now I'm coming right at him, and I'm going to get my fist into his chest and lift him up and drive him back. And you'll do things like that as well. But it does come down to your length and your athleticism and your speed and quickness. So, yeah, those are absolutely things that will factor into that idea.
Agreed.
Good stuff. I love this one.
Getting into part 2 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. Doing the Friday free-for-all mailbag. We have one in here from AFTD 2007. You're only offered 3 scholarships for football. One of them is from USC. The second one is from the University of Michigan. And the third one is from Kent State. Which school are you choosing?
Trev, I'd like to get your opinion on this, because I've answered this one before, and I'll answer it again this time, but I want to get your thoughts on this. So you think about the position you played. You were a quarterback. If you were good enough to be a Division I football player and you get offered by these 3 schools, Where are you going?
I'd go somewhere and be a preferred walk-on.
Dang lie. I love Trevor's answer. I'll give you my answer, and I'm actually good. If I was a Division I athlete, I was coming out of high school, and I'm in Atlantic Shores. I'm getting recruited by USC. I'm getting recruited by Michigan. I'm getting recruited by Kent State. As long as I felt USC and Michigan like thought that I could come in there and compete for the starting job and not just be a depth guy, I'm going to USC. Because fandom aside, look, the school that wanted me is Notre Dame. The school that I'd want to go to, that I'm a fan of, is Notre Dame. They didn't want me. So my loyalties to them don't exist because they didn't want me to come play for them. I got to do what's best for me. And right now, of those three options, if as a quarterback, which is what I played, what Trevor played, I'm sorry. As much as I hate them as a fan, I'd love to go to USC if I was a quarterback, because the guy that's there has had how many guys be first round, number 1 overall? He's had 3 number 1 overall draft picks. He has another guy that he turned from a dual threat guy into a pocket passer that had over 3,000 yards in Jalen Hurts, who went in the second round, who just, I don't know, Trev, won that thing called the Super Bowl last year. You know, like he's got a pretty good track record of producing quarterbacks. Yeah, I'd go play for him. I'd absolutely go play for him. You know, with all due respect, when I'm going to college, my fandom doesn't have anything to do with it unless Notre Dame offers me. If Notre Dame offered me, it's a no-brainer. I want to go play for Mike Denbrock and Gino Gadulli and Marcus Freeman. If they don't want me, and I'm a quarterback, and those are my 3 best options, I'm going to USC. I wouldn't love living out in L.A., but it's what, for 3-4 years, and then I get to go to the NFL, and I'm good to go. That would be my answer.
Yeah, if I had to choose between these 3, I'd go USC. If I played quarterback, go play for Lincoln Riley. Part of it is if, you know, my life is essentially the same, but I'm a D1 prospect. I don't know if I would want to go from Indianapolis or Elkhart to LA. I just don't know if I'd want to be that far away from home. Yeah. But then, unfortunately, I think the closest home option for me would be Ann Arbor. I don't know if I'd want to go be a quarterback at Michigan, to be honest with you.
Just systematically right now, I don't know that I'd want to play in that system.
Yep.
And if I was a 26 or 27 guy, I don't know that I'd want to sit behind Bryce Underwood for that long, depth chart wise. Good question.
From Ronnie Reeves, do you think Texas A&M will have better luck against CJ, considering Miami has 0 film on him, but A&M will have a full game to evaluate?
I don't know if I'd say they have better look. Look, anytime you've got film on a guy compared to no film, even one game, it matters. But it's still it's only that game against that defense. And do we run a similar type of defense? And do we have similar type of personnel, that type of thing?
Sure.
It's in that regard, who's going to have a better sense of what the Notre Dame offense looks like with CJ Carr running it? A&M will have a better advantage. I don't think that necessarily means they're going to necessarily play better, because I think any advantage they have in that regard, they somewhat lose by CJ Carr now having more experience going into that game than he had against Miami, because he'll have 2 weeks of preparation for that game. The players will have another full game of him, and then now the Notre Dame coaches will have 2 games of what A&M's trying to do defensively, where A&M's only have 1 game of Notre Dame. So I think it's a bit of a wash between Notre Dame and A&M, but it's certainly an advantage of A&M compared to Miami. With Miami, they're not, and that's not just CJ Carr. They don't have any film of what Malachi Fields' role is going to be in the Notre Dame offense. They don't have any film of what Will Pauling's role is going to be in the offense. It's all those things. And so certainly I think A&M has an advantage into being able to be more prepared for Notre Dame compared to Miami, but I don't think it's dramatic either way. It's just 1 game. So it's more, but it won't be like, man, we would have lost if we played them in week 1, but now that we get them in game 2, we're going to win by 20. I don't think it's that.
Agreed.
Remember, it took teams like 5 games to figure out Brian Van Gorder. And then once they did, it was like, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Some things I get over, some things I don't.
Don't blame you. From Play Like a Champ, if the competition was as close as it's being reported, does that effort from boosters to get a highly touted recruit like CJ play any role? For example, donors hoping to see return on an investment?
No. Look, Marcus Freeman has one job and one job only when it comes to picking a quarterback. Who gives us the best chance to win? Am I reading this correct, Trevor, in that reaction? As in, are you going to allow what the boosters want to have an impact on who you decide if it's close? Is that how you read it? Or did you read it differently?
No, I read it that way too. Look, at the end of the day, this goes back to what we talked about when CJ was announced. And I'm not saying you're saying this, play like a champ. Is it a valid question? Excuse me. With all the things that have been flying around there, sure. Maybe, just maybe, it was just a really close competition between two highly touted people, two good recruits. Let's not forget, for all the effort that Notre Dame went through to get CJ, a highly touted recruit, they put in the same amount of effort to flip Kenny Minchie from Pitt after CJ had committed. So he was clearly somebody that the coaching staff wanted. Maybe it was just a really close competition and CJ ended up winning the battle. I don't think it had anything to do with money. I don't think it had anything to do with recruiting rankings. I think it was just a good competition that CJ, at the end of the day, at the end of camp, outperformed Kenny Minchie. And that's why he was named the starter. I don't think it was for any reason outside of that.
Agree. I don't think those things matter to coaches as much as people think that they do.
Nope.
I think the only reason that Marcus Freeman would have played Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr, if he felt that CJ Carr wasn't better in the end, or as the staff sat down and they decided as a staff, is if they had made him a promise contractually in when they signed him, which they did not do. I mean, look, you signed a contract that says we're going to start this guy by the beginning of his second year, then you got to start him. But I don't think we would have gone through all this nonsense of a quarterback battle where he wasn't getting starting, first team reps until 2 weeks before the first game, less than 2 weeks before the first game, if that was the case. I can assure you that was not in his contract. There was no contract signed with Notre Dame and CJ Carr that promised him anything other than a chance to compete. That's it. And they went with him because they felt, after all was said and done, that he gave them the best chance to beat Miami. And then there was also, I believe, a long-term element as well, which you should always look at, which we said they should look at. But I think ultimately that's why it was, and that was it. That was it. And then there's another one from Play Like a Champ that's related to the quarterback decision.
Does the quarterback decision signal anything to you about the staff's confidence in an improvement in pass blocking by the offensive line? If they were serious issues, seems like they would lean towards Kenny.
Possibly, but I think, again, it kind of goes down to, number one, there's multiple ways to adapt to an offensive line that can't protect the quarterback, and it's not just with running the football. There's quick game decisions, there's moving the pocket, there's all types of things that go into it. But at the end of the day, if one guy is better than the other, with all your data is compiled, then you go with the guy who's better. If it was equal and you felt your offensive line was going to struggle, then you could say, okay, now let's factor that into the conversation. Like, I'm not sitting there saying that you don't use this ability as a tiebreaker if you do have concerns with your offensive line. I'm saying it's only if it's a tiebreaker. And I don't think that was the case here. But I also think that CJ Carr has more mobility than maybe people think. He'll just use it a little bit differently. He's a pretty good athlete.
He is.
Brian Smith did a film breakdown of CJ Carr, which is very well done, by the way. So you can check it out on Brian's. He's got an Irish recruiting podcast, and he put it on the message board. And we always support the work that Brian does. But he kind of went play-by-play of the huddle breakdown, and you see plays of CJ getting out of the pocket and doing different things. And we did where I took every clip of CJ from the 24 and 25 blue gold game, and there's plenty of times of CJ getting out of the pocket, on the move, finding guys down the field, and doing things like that. So he's not Jack Cohn. I love Jack Cohn, but I mean, Jack Cohn would tell you he's a bit, not the most mobile guy in the pocket. This isn't what we're talking about. He's not Sam Hartman either. He's closer to Ian Book than he is Jack Cohn. I'm not saying he's Ian Book, but I'm saying he's closer to Ian Book athletically than he was Jack Cohn athletically.
From Trey Jones, in past years, I remember hearing that the defense would have a few periods during camp defending the triple option. Did Ash continue this? Either way, how impactful are these early reps?
Trey, I honestly haven't heard anything about that. The quarterback thing has kind of drowned everything else out to a degree. I haven't heard anything about that, and I honestly wonder if they would even do that this year because they play Navy so late, and because they have a bye week. What is it, like 2 weeks before they play Navy? Trev, right? Isn't it? They have the bye, then they play at BC, and then home against Navy. Isn't that how the schedule? Then it's at Pitt, then home against Syracuse, and then at Stanford. Mm-hmm. So you'll have a bye 2 weeks before that you'll probably spend that first week of the bye getting some triple option work in, then you transition into BC prep, then you go to Navy the next week, is what I would assume they could do. I don't know how much of any triple option work you would even do in fall camp is going to even be relevant to your football team in over 2 months. Because you got all of September, all of October, and then you don't play them till November 8th. I just don't know how relevant that would be, to be honest with you. Especially when you have 2 buys before you play them. Like 2 buys meaning in the season. I just think that'd probably be better time to do it is during the bye. Now, maybe if they didn't have a bye that close, maybe then they might have considered it. But I think that just kind of has to factor in. And they still may have, Trey. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying, like, in my opinion, I would wait. They may have. We just didn't hear anything about it because I don't know if a lot of people were thinking about asking the question about, are you guys doing triple option work with everything else kind of going on in fall camp? That's just kind of drowned everything else out.
From DJ Holman, with all of the reporting of turnovers in practice and non-IB podcasts reacting negatively about it, when should these reports on turnovers be concerning, and does it really translate to games?
DJ, that's a great question. I think, number one, there's a lot of stuff that's being talked about from an agenda standpoint rather than real football standpoint.
Yeah.
And anyone obsessing over turnovers in practice, I would say, doesn't understand how football really works in practice. You don't evaluate practice like a game. Anyone trying to tell you that turnovers are completely irrelevant in practice is also giving you an agenda. It's a combination of both. There are certain interceptions that don't bother me. I talked about an interception that CJ Carr threw in the blue gold game that didn't bother me. It was a mistake, but it didn't bother me. I talked about how one of the interceptions he threw in the first practice didn't bother me. The third one shouldn't bother anybody because it literally hit a receiver right in the hands and he dropped it. The concern isn't the throw. So the one we talked about day one, CJ Carr tries to throw it over top of Tay Johnson. Tay jumps up, makes a great catch, picks it off. Didn't bother me. You tested it. You saw him there. He tried to get it over him. Tay is a much better athlete maybe than you think and what you're used to seeing, and he goes up and makes a play. Doesn't bother me. What bothers me if on practice 9, you throw your 4th interception doing the same exact thing. That's when you, as a coach, you start getting concerned. Dude, that's the 5th outcut interception you've thrown in fall camp. Like, at some point in time, we're not learning from those mistakes. That's when it becomes a problem. You've thrown a post-route interception with the backside safety now 5 times in fall camp. You're clearly not seeing the backside safety. You got to figure that out or we can't call that play. That's when it becomes an issue, DJ, is when it's repetitive. Like certain types of interceptions are repetitive. The other thing, too, is when you're throwing a lot of interceptions because you're being careless with the football. And that's a concern. That's an interception we saw with Kenny in his first spring game. Remember, he was getting pressure. And he just kind of hurls it downfield and it gets no receiver near it. Luke Talich picks it off and runs back. You don't want to see that. Saw a quarterback make another interception in the Jersey scrimmage in the fall or in the spring where he just locks in on a guy and throws the hitch and the guy steps in front of it and intercepts it. Probably would have taken it back to the house. Like, that's being careless. You didn't trust your read. Both quarterbacks have made mistakes like that. I'm just pointing to the one that we saw with Kenny. When you see a lot of those, that's also when you get concerned. I haven't heard a lot of the turnovers were part of practice. And Gino Gadulli made this comment in a post-practice. He's like, I don't care about interceptions in practice. This is what practice is for. Hey, you thought you could make that throw? Let's see if you can make it against our first-team defense. Let's do it. Now, if you're still making those interceptions against the scout team defense, then now we got a problem. But like, look, you thought you could beat Leonard Moore on that. Now you know you can't. You thought you could get over Tay Johnson. Now you know you can't. But the team we're going to play next week has a 5'9" safety, not a 6'3" safety. So maybe you can make that play. You learn those things in practice. And then you say, okay, now let's just not keep making that mistake. You learn, you adjust, you get better at something. You now know I can make this tough throw, but I can't make that tough throw. Because you don't want the first time CJ Carr has to throw a ball into a tight window to be third quarter against Miami when you're down 10. Or fourth quarter against Miami when you need to complete a 3rd and 5 to keep the chains going because you got to sit on your 4-point lead with 5 minutes left. You move the chains here, they're out of timeouts. We feel good. You want to test those things. So there's a balance to this. This isn't a defending all the turnovers. This is also, you don't want to overreact to them. There needs to be that healthy balance. We would need context as to why their turnovers are happening more. And are they repetitive turnovers? Are they turnovers happening in periods where I don't care about a quarterback throwing a turnover in one-on-one. What I hate in one-on-one is when a quarterback just holds the ball. Throw it away. Do something. Test this window. Hey, can I bang this out cut down low and away when there's tight man coverage? Let me test that throw. No, he picked it. All right, now I know I can't make that throw. Or if I am, I'm going to have to throw it sooner. So there's just a lot of missing context that's not in these conversations. And it's not there because it sells. People watch it. They listen to it. And also some people just don't know football. So they hear interception, they just start panicking because they don't know football. So so the final part, Trev, when should those reports on terms be concerning? When they give context as to why and when it's happening, and it looks like what we talked about above. He's made that same mistake now 5 times in fall camp, and for a turnover, not even just the incompletion times, or where he's just not, like, why does that guy keep throwing the check down on that route? Because he doesn't see the backside safety, and I'd rather him throw the check down than force another interception on that play. It's my fault for calling it because he can't read it. And so those are all parts of it. And does it translate to games? It can. If it's reckless, it will absolutely translate to games. No question. Good question, DJ.
From Guns and Roses, who is a receiver that isn't receiving enough hype nationally, non-Notre Dame? His is Bryant Wesco.
Is he not getting a lot of hype?
Now, a lot of it's going to TJ Moore and Antonio Williams.
Okay. Then, yeah, that's a good one. If he's not getting a lot of hype, I think that's a good one. It is. I'll tell you a guy that we've talked a lot about, Trev. First of all, do you agree with Brian Wesco?
Mine was going to – I do agree with that premise, but that's not mine. Mine's Isaiah Horton going to Alabama.
It's a good one because we've talked a lot about him, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about him. I'll tell you a guy who I don't think is getting enough love nationally, and that's a guy who's playing in tomorrow's game. J.C. Brown from Kansas State is not getting nearly enough attention. I think that guy is going to be a really good player in the Big 12 this year as long as he stays healthy, Trev. Coming off a year last year, had 47 catches, 823 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaged 17.5 yards per catch. He's a kid from Florida. Had 3 for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns against Iowa State at the end of the regular season. Went 5 for 60 against Rutgers in a bowl game. Had 5 for 98 against Kansas. 3 for 86 against Houston. He had 6 for 121 in a road win over Colorado. 2 touchdowns in that game. Had 4 for 78 against Oklahoma and a touchdown. So I think he's a kid that, especially as part of it too, is I think Avery Johnson's going to be better this year. He's now going to his 3rd year of college, 2nd full year as a starter. I think he's a kid that I look at, Trev, and say I think he's also poised to have a jump as a quarterback, be more accurate, better decision maker, things like that, which is then going to result in just better overall pass game performances. So I would like to see that. I think Colorado should have maybe considered putting Travis Hunter on J.C. Brown because he wasn't on him during that game. He was ripping up the other guys. I just looked at the PFF breakdown of it, but yeah, he's a really good player.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else just random, like any other guys you can think of? I mean, there's several that we could probably talk through and think through. But when you're on a team like Clemson, it's hard to talk about all 3 of them. It's like That's why I say just keep talking about the receiving core.
Yeah, his name gets brought up in reference to the receiving core, but not enough people are talking about Bryant Wesco individually. Whereas that's why my pick was Isaiah Horton, because a lot of people are talking about Ryan Williams at Alabama, but I love that pickup. I really do. I think that's going to play well for him. Super chat from Drew Rainey. Appreciate you, Drew. 1, is it fair to say that Drake Bowen is getting a little overlooked by the national media? And 2, were we silly questioning Marcus Freeman on the quarterback situation, considering what he did last year?
I'll answer the second one first. Is no, you're never silly for questioning authority. That's part of our job. We aren't cult members. We don't say, in Marcus we trust, bow to Marcus Freeman. If we think what he's doing is right, then we support him. If what he's doing we think is wrong, then we don't support him. And when you question him and you turn out to be wrong, hey, I think making this decision is going to backfire. Then you go at the end of the year and it not only does it not backfire, but that guy thrives. Okay, I was wrong, and you own it. And so, no, I don't think I question it, because I think there are even today some things that we know, and I've learned even more about the situation since it's happened. We're saying, I don't know if that was necessarily the best way to go about it. You got the result the right way, but I don't know if that was necessarily the best way to go about it. And you question those things. But I don't know that what he did last year necessarily says anything, because just because you handled something one year, this is a very different situation than last year. You were, of course, you're going to trust Riley Leonard last year because you had a track record of 2 years of him as a starting quarterback, including a game against you where he gave your defense fits of knowledge, where this year you don't have a track record with the quarterbacks that they're in. So I don't think it was silly questioning him at all. That's our job. I think it's silly if you are going to try to spin it after the fact of, well, I wasn't really, or, you try to say, well, I got it wrong, but here's why Marcus Freeman, that is, I think, silly. But I may not like the way you got there, but the fact is this is a coach who allowed the data to impact his decision and trusted his coaches. Isn't that what you want? And that's what I think he did. So that's my answer to number 2, Trev. Do you have anything on that? And then I'll get your thoughts on number 1.
No, I mean, it's never silly to question something because he's never done it before. We have not watched Marcus Freeman conduct a legitimate quarterback battle before. So just because he won the Sugar Bowl and Orange Bowl last year doesn't mean that we sit back, we being me and Brian, Vince, Sean, we don't sit back and just say, well, there's nothing he can do wrong because he brought home a major bowl win, 2 in a week. Is that impressive? Sure. That has nothing to do with how he's going to dictate a quarterback competition, a real quarterback competition, not in 2023 where they were like, yeah, we're going to see who wins. It's like, hey, you didn't bring in like the 8th all-time leading passer in NCAA history to see if he's going to battle it out with Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner. Come on now. But at the end of the day, got to the result that we thought that should have been the case, and we move on. And then for the first one, I think that's definitely fair. There's some outlets that are giving him more attention than others. I mean, PFF, we're talking about Drake Bowen. PFF ranked him as, their number 9 returning linebacker in the country, not inside linebacker, just overall linebacker in the country. He's on the Butkus Award watch list. So I think he's getting overlooked by some, but I don't want to just throw the blanket statement out there of he's getting overlooked nationally. I mean, there's an argument to be made for anybody to be overlooked nationally. Leonard Moore wasn't on an ESPN article's key returning players, but he's also on the Bronco Nagurski Award watch list, Jim Thorpe Award watch list, and is a first-team All-American in every preseason list that's essentially came out. And so do I think Drake is getting overlooked by the masses? Kind of. I think he should be a little bit higher in some of these lists. But overall, I think he's getting some well-warranted attention. He was a starter for 1 year as a true sophomore.
I think the only national media that's overlooking Drake Bowen is ESPN. They had a top 100 players list come out the other day. Only 4 Notre Dame players on it. Drake Bowen wasn't on there. I think that was overlooking Drake Bowen. But to your point, a lot of other people rank him in a range I'm comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he the number 9 returning linebacker in the country? I don't know. I need to really sit down and study the film. You could maybe make a case he should be 6, 5, 4, but he's top 10. Like, I'm not going to beef on that.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it. I think he's gotten a lot of respect. He's on the Butkus Award watch list. I mean, he's getting plenty of love to where if he goes out and backs it up, he'll have those opportunities. What wasn't he like on 2 preseason All-American awards? Not he was on, I think, second team on a couple or third team on a couple. I think Phil Steele had him on one. I think somebody else had him as a preseason third or something like that. That's fine. Like you said, 1 year's a starter and his numbers weren't elite. 78 tackles, 4 tackles. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think the only issues I've ever had is when I see an evaluation of Drew that I just think is misguided. Like, you didn't watch him play. Yeah. Like, if you're questioning his athleticism, you didn't watch him play. That would be my thing. But no, I think the ESPN not having him in the top 100, that's the one that's overlooking him. Now, the only time that they've given him love is they did a top like 100 or something of, or remember that was like the top 25 non-quarterbacks. Remember they had that list early in the offseason?
Yeah.
And Drake was on there, but that was compiled based on what coaches were saying to them. That should tell them something. Like, maybe you should have taken your own article and thought about, maybe we should have this guy on there. But
maybe
that would require work.
Boo.
Yeah.
Super chat from A. Reagan. Appreciate the super chat. The narrative that CJ will struggle and Kenny will come in is ridiculous and negative as Notre Dame fans and media. And we should try to be happy as fans, and hopefully, especially as it is the first true Notre Dame quarterback battle in years.
Trevor, you're on social media a lot more than I am. Is this a thing?
It depends on whichever outlet you want to listen to, what fans you want to listen to. Look,
Gotcha.
In any sort of position battle, people are going to be happy or not happy. We've said this all off season long. People sort themselves into camp, but then they just kind of lob the easy grenade of, but I just want Notre Dame to win. It's like, but everything else you said beforehand is contrary to what you're saying
right
now.
I said with all due respect. Doesn't mean to say whatever you want.
I said no offense.
I said no offense.
I said no offense. Like, look, at the end of the day, does the narrative there's ways to go about this competition. Do I think CJ was the correct starter? I do. Do I think Kenny was a very close second? Yes, I also do. Could I see a world where CJ struggles? Yeah, I do, because he's never taken a meaningful snap of college football, and his first one's going to be down at Hard Rock Stadium in an away game in an environment that Notre Dame has never won in. Could I see him struggling?
1977. Yeah.
So could I see CJ struggling? Yeah, I do. But then this idea that Kenny's going to come in and be Superman and save the day, I also don't know if that's true. You know why? Because I also haven't seen Kenny Minchie take a meaningful snap of football.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just evaluate the situation for what it is. If you want to be butthurt about your guy not winning the battle, then just keep it to yourself or text your other buddies about it. But just putting it out on
ball. Hey, you know what? Here's my concern. Insert football reason why, which we did when we had questions about when we thought it was going to be Kenny. We didn't like that, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest, Trev. If they would have named Kenny the starter, you'd be hearing the other side of this conversation talking about how
100%
same exact thing.
Yeah, because people sort themselves into camp, and they would rather be right than see team success. And that is something that I've learned about this job. I mean, it's unfortunately, that's where they're at.
Yep.
Super chat from Michael S. Thank you, Michael. Compare CJ Carr versus Julian Sayin. I know this is totally speculative.
They're both good quarterbacks. I had them both in the top 100, and I think I had Julian as a top 50-ish caliber player coming out of high school. I had CJ as a 5-star, so like top 25 caliber player. They're a little different style. CJ has more of the prototypical quarterback build, 6'3", 210, pocket passer type of traits. Julian is shorter. I think he's listed at 6'1" at Ohio State. I don't know that he's 6'1". I don't know that he's 6 foot. I'd have to, he just looks smaller on film. He's got a really live arm. He can throw the ball. He can be an effective passer, but he was a little bit more of a gunslinger. Actually, you shouldn't say that. He was more of a kind of like a street ball type of player in high school. And when I say that, just so y'all know, that's a compliment to me. A street ball type of player. When I played in the street when we were kids, I'm dropping back throwing dimes, but I'm also like running around and making play. I mean, that's what you do when you're playing street ball, right? I mean, you're moving around, you're just kind of letting it fly. You're doing this, you're throwing backwards. And he's got a lot of that to his game in high school. He could hurt you throwing for 120 yards because he could also run, but he could also hurt you. He could throw for 300 yards, and you're just like, was he dropping back and dice you up? No, he had 137 yards on 2 passes out of the pocket that he found guys backside for a big play. Killed us. Yeah, I mean, he's that type of player, and that's what I like about Julian. He brings a very different element to the table than what a Will Howard or a CJ Stroud brought to the table. Not better, not worse, not stronger, not weaker, just different. And probably he's got a little bit of JT Barrett to him. Now, he's not the pure runner that JT was. Like, you're not going to be running a lot of, like, quarterback power. I mean, just athletically, he's similar to JT. I don't compare him to Justin Fields because Justin was a lot bigger and a little bit more powerful and was more designed runs. I'm talking about like as a scrambler, buying time, moving in the pocket. He's a much more natural passer than JT was. So there's a lot to like about his game. I just don't think he's got like that elite arm or even an elite throwing ability. I think he's got really good throwing ability with really good playmaking ability. I think what Julian's saying to me, he's more of a playmaker than he is a guy that's going to sit back and go 31 of 37 and just dice you for an entire game. Not if you're really good. He's going to hurt you because, man, your backside safety didn't keep contained when your offense got him out of the pocket. He launches one down the field over top of the defense because he kept his eyes downfield. And where CJ Carr is mobile and doing all that, but CJ Carr is does have that elite arm talent where he's going to dice you up. He can dice you up. He will make some throws. You were like, holy crap, there aren't a lot of guys can make that throw. I'm not talking about like 80-yard bombs. I'm talking about like we saw in the blue gold game. Like, how did he complete that on the Don Shula? I've never seen anybody beat a Don Shula like that. He did it twice in the same drive. You know what I mean? And you're just like, okay, that's a little different. So that would be my comparison, Trevor, is they're not really all that similar, except they're both really good.
One thing that they have in common, too, is they are both on FanDuel's Heisman odds. Julian Sain is at plus 2,000 odds to win the Heisman, and CJ Carr bumped up to plus 3,000 after he got named the starter. Those are on FanDuel's odds. But it's another thing that they have in common, just to throw that out there, because I know both guys have yet to kind of play some meaningful football. So interesting to see where guys like that always fall.
Mm-hmm. And we have one more super chat before we get back to the top.
From our guy, Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, Tyler. I have 2 games for you. Who wins? South Carolina versus Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech versus Colorado, and why?
South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Where is that game being played, Trev? That's next weekend, correct? That's a week 1 game.
Yeah, is
it a neutral site game? Let me look it up here.
I'm not sure. I know Georgia Tech travels to Colorado, but I don't know about South Carolina.
It's in Atlanta. I like South Carolina in that game. I think Virginia Tech's going to have a decent team this year. I don't love this Virginia Tech team. It really comes down to this, man. Does Kyron Drones ball out or not? That's really how their season is going to go. And games where Kyron Drones is the best version of himself, that's a hard team to beat. Ask Miami. In games where Kyron Drones is not the best version of himself, they're a lot easier to beat. And against Vanderbilt last year, we got a little bit of both from him in that game, if I remember correctly. But there were times Kyron Drones looked like a dude in that game, and his numbers were good. I'm looking at it now. So I was correct, 22 of 33 for 322 yards and 2 touchdowns. But he also had a bad pick and had some really bad misses in that game. And then there's other times where it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing here? He made some plays against Miami. You're like, wow, that was really impressive. And then against Rutgers, he looked terrible. So he's just got to be more consistent. Of course, got hurt at the end of the year. So, but at the end of the day, I think South Carolina is better in the trenches. I think South Carolina has better athletes on the perimeter. As much as I love Kyron Drones, I don't think he's as good as Lenore Sellers. I don't know where there's an area where you're like, okay, they're going to exploit them, other than just South Carolina makes mistakes and hurts themselves. And then Virginia Tech takes advantage, or Kyron Drones just turns into Superman for a day, which he's capable of doing. He's certainly capable of doing. So that's why I like the Gamecocks on that one, Trev. What say you?
Yeah, I'm with you for all those same reasons. I'm taking South Carolina in that game as well. I'm more kind of versed in the Georgia Tech at Colorado game, and I'm taking Georgia Tech. Look, man, with that dynamic backfield of Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, Colorado has still yet to figure out how to run the ball and stop the run.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that that's going to be something that they figure out this year. I don't. They have their quarterback issues of their own. I know they have two talented guys in Caden Salter and the Julian Lewis kid. Am I?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I know they have two talented quarterbacks, but right now they're going into it with just we're going to play them both kind of mentality. I'm not a fan of that in general. It's not because Colorado's doing it. Never been a big fan of that. And I just don't love their talent in the trenches on either side of the ball. So I have Georgia Tech in that one, even though Colorado's at home.
Agree. I just think there's just too many moving parts for Colorado right now. In week one, maybe in game 4 or 5, maybe Colorado's got a better shot in that one, but there's too many moving parts.
I know, which is unfortunate because Deion's been through. I mean, he's been through it this offseason. So
yeah, that's the kind of game though that if they win, completely changes the dynamic about his program.
Oh yeah,
because this is a hot Georgia Tech team. I mean, heck, you have them in the playoffs.
Sure do.
And I don't think you're nuts for thinking that. Like, I like this team. But you get a win like that at home, first big game without your son, without Travis Hunter, with a remade roster. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, maybe this Deion Sanders guy's a pretty darn good football coach. Because there's a lot of people that still think that he won because he had Shador and Travis. Oh, okay. Well, what about now? They went 9-3 again without those guys. What now?
Yeah.
What's your knock on him now? And so I think this is a big year for Coach Sanders. I really do. I think it's a big year for him. And I think it's a big year for him to show that, hey, I can do this without just relying on my kids. Because I think, kind of look at Travis Hunter's kind of like family for Coach Sanders.
Sure.
Because he's known him for so long. That's why he followed him to Jackson State and followed him to Colorado. And dude beat out his alma mater to get Travis Hunter. Remember, they flipped him from Florida State.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big year for him. And that kind of win at home would start to, I think, show that, hey, Colorado's a force to be reckoned with Deion Sanders as the head coach.
From Play Like a Champ, imagining ways to use Minchie. What about a 4-minute package? Slightly higher emphasis on the run, fewer big risky throws needed. Take what's there and run the clock. Unlikely, but fun to speculate.
I wouldn't love that. Honestly, I want to see the starting quarterback be the starting quarterback. If you were going to have him be in the game, I think that's kind of a big part of the game. That's a big part of the game. If you're going to do anything, I'd say like a red zone type of package where you feel you need that extra hat or whatever to run the football. You want to get teams to defend you differently, maybe to clean up some run game stuff and some short yardage situations. If you want to do something like that, okay, that's fine. I can live with that. But I don't know, like a 4-minute package would be necessarily the route I'd want to go. I think more of like a red zone run game type of package would be more of my cup of tea, where hey, we get inside the 25 and we call whatever, Kenny, you're going in the game. If you're going to do that, I would rather do something like that than have them go in there in the 4-minute offense where the game is on the line. Like, that drive could determine the game. I don't know if I want to bring a guy off the bench to do that. We're going to bring a guy off the bench in the red zone. Yeah, I get that, but you're kind of practicing that every day. You don't practice 4-minute offense every day. You practice that like on Thursday. So I don't know that I'd want to do that. But I think you at least should consider a package for him. I don't know that I would, but I think you should at least consider it. My fear of doing it is you run the risk of a guy that's got a package being able to execute that package really well because he's got a small group of things to do, 2 pass plays, 3 runs. And then if the other guy doesn't play great, well, see, this guy did this. And then, and it just potentially could create more issues. At the same time, if you think your team is better with him in the game, in that package, then sure, you consider it. I would simply say, if you're going to have a package for a running quarterback, I don't think Kenny Minchie's the guy on the roster that I'm going to, with all due respect. No. The most athletic, dynamic quarterback you have in your roster's number 10, not number 8.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just doing that to keep Kenny happy. And I don't think you do that. If you are dead set on having a mobile quarterback in a red zone run game package, why wouldn't you go to Tyler Buckner?
No, you're not wrong.
Speaking
you're
of
not
South
wrong
Carolina,
at all.
go ask their defense what it's like defending Tyler Buckner's legs.
No, you're definitely not wrong, man. You're definitely not wrong. The one thing I've learned this offseason, I think the vast majority of the fan base, they want to figure out who the starting quarterback is so they can find any possible way to use a sub package to not use their starting quarterback. Because goodness gracious. What if there's a red zone package for Tyler and a 4-minute package for Kenny and a speed option package with Rezak? It's like, hey, you guys do know that CJ Carr is a starting quarterback capable of doing all of those things. That is the one thing that I've learned this offseason. There should be a package for every possible scenario in a football game.
Yeah, I'm just saying you've got a quarterback on your roster that's got 8 rushing touchdowns in his career in college at the Power 4 level. Just saying.
It would be TB for me as well.
Just saying. And I wouldn't do that either. I'm just, if you're going to do one, why not? Yeah. Why not go with him?
Yeah. From Buellsfeld Financial Services, Inc. If the ACC follows the SEC to a 9-game conference schedule, how would that affect or not affect Notre Dame's future schedules?
I don't know that it would. No matter how many games the ACC decides to play, they still have a contract with Notre Dame that goes to 2035 that says they have to play X number of games. That's what it means. So would the ACC maybe go to Notre Dame and say, hey, listen, we'd like to adjust who you play? That's fine. I think Notre Dame would want that. Notre Dame has talked about wanting that. But I don't think it changes the number of games that you play. Because contractually, you owe them. And it's just the reality of it. So it'll have an impact, but I don't know that it won't impact. It may have an impact in who they play, when they play, because you've now got another conference game you got to work in, but it's not going to impact like whether or not Notre Dame's going to still play X number of games against the ACC. And if it does, then the ACC is going to owe Notre Dame a whole lot of money.
From B. Straw, if Lambert is showing good signs at right guard, where do you think Marcus Freeman and Joe Rudolph will put Jagasaw at when he's ready to come back? Do you think it could be left tackle?
I think it was you and I were talking about this yesterday, Trev, the different scenarios. And I think it just depends on 2 factors. Number one, when does Charles Jagasaw come back? And how is everybody else performing when he comes back? Let's say that, Billy Strouth is injured. I think you put him at left guard. Let's say that Emil Wagner's banged up. Maybe you put him at right tackle. Maybe you bump Gerby out to right tackle and put Jags back to right guard. Let's say Anthony Knapp's injured or banged up or not 100% or struggling, and then maybe you put him at left tackle. I just think a lot of it's going to depend on how's the rest of your line playing, and then overall, like how's his. There's a world where I don't know that playing him at left tackle, coming off of a broken left arm, would make a ton of sense if, let's say, he's got some flexibility issues in his left hand or something like that. Like, maybe, I don't know. Whereas inside at guard, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of different things that factor into where you play him, and bringing him back in game 2 is going to be different than bringing him back in game 7. So I don't know where you play him. And honestly, depending on how well the line as a whole is playing, like let's say he's back after Boise, and Notre Dame's averaging 212 rushing yards a game, and they've given up 4 sacks in 5 games, and it's not just because CJ's out there avoiding sacks, but do you really want to rock the boat? I mean, if you wanted to be out there, don't get hurt. And I'm not saying that like he did anything wrong. That's just life. Like that's just life. So I just think but if the line's like struggling and they're just not really getting great push, you're figure freaking like if I'm Marcus Freeman and we're not running the ball great, and I go into Joe Rudolph's office like, all right, we got Gerby this week. We got Jags this week. What are you thinking? And he's like, man, I don't know. I'm like, hey man, I wasn't asking you if you want to play him or not. He's gonna play. I'm asking you where you're gonna put him. So it just depends on how the line as a whole is playing, who's playing well, who's injured, whatever. I just think the more games that Gerby Lambert plays, the harder and harder and harder and harder it's going to be to get him out of the lineup, no matter who comes back. And that's why you recruit like you recruit at Notre Dame.
Guns and Rosas, dream matchup for Notre Dame to host in the playoffs. I'm too basic, but I'd love to see LSU have to travel to Notre Dame. That would be the loudest Notre Dame stadium in a long, long time.
I know someone who has that matchup predicted in the playoffs.
Yep.
I don't want to name names or point fingers, but it's this guy next to me in the chat in the show right now.
I do have it predicted. I have it predicted in the quarterfinals, though. So I have Notre Dame getting a bye.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, so it's 2 versus 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So I have Notre Dame getting a bye.
Have LSU traveling up here.
But I would love nothing more than that to happen. I would.
Is that your matchup, Trev? Would that be it? Is having LSU come up here this year?
I would say that, or one thing that would be kind of funny. This is kind of a long, drawn-out scenario, but like, let's just say hypothetically USC somehow makes the playoff this year. Which I don't want to say somehow like it's impossible. Like there's a path to it. It's just of all the Big Ten teams, I think that USC would need there to be 5 Big Ten teams in the playoff this year, not that they become one of the 4. But anyways, let's just say USC makes the playoffs, and this comes after they get rid of the Notre Dame contract. So like, we don't want to come to South Bend. We don't even come to South Bend at the end of November because it's too cold, and then they have to travel up to South Bend in December.
That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be pretty cool. Like that.
Yeah,
that would be pretty sweet. But
I dig that. That's
a very one-off scenario. But I would like for that to happen for Brian Kelly to have to travel up to Ellis or to South Bend to play a game. That'd be fun.
That's a good one. Another one for me is Bama. Just because we've talked about that, it's the dragon that you haven't been able to slay. I wouldn't mind seeing Ohio State come back because I still have some feelings about how that game ended in 2023, and would love to see a little payback on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any SEC team coming up here in December would be a lot of fun to watch. But if I had to only pick one, I mean, it'd be hard for me not to go there. I think Texas coming here would be an amazing matchup, and not for any like I want to whoop them, but just like what an amazing December atmosphere that you'd have if Texas had to come up to South Bend for a playoff game. That'd just be such an electric, awesome environment. It's like not everything for me for dream matchup is like payback against this guy or I hate that school. Sometimes it's like, dude, I love college football. And I would love to see Bama versus Notre Dame in a playoff game in Notre Dame Stadium. Like, I love the fact that the first ever playoff game in a 12-team playoff, that first ever playoff game hosted on a team's campus was in South Bend, Indiana. Well, actually, technically, Notre Dame, Indiana. But it was at Notre Dame. Just wish it was somebody better than Indiana. You know what I mean? Like, for a while there, we were thinking it was going to be Bama.
I thought it was going
to.
I
wanted that one. But it was like, it wasn't meant to be. But I think just an epic college football game.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Michigan came to Notre Dame for a playoff game, you know how I feel about Michigan. I hate that program, football-wise anyway. But that'd be an amazing environment and an amazing college football game. Forget my personal feelings about Michigan. It's not as storied, but there have been some epic games. A lot of people view it as a big rivalry. Yeah. It's iconic helmets. Both northern teams. It's not a weather thing. It'd be a huge moment. I would have much rather seen that last year than Indiana.
Oh yeah.
So there's also that element to it where I just would love it to be 2 blue bloods going at it. That's what I would love to see. Like I wish they would have flipped Indiana and Tennessee last year. I would have much rather been against Tennessee than Indiana. That'd have been awesome. Not that they wanted to send Indiana back to Ohio State, but you get what I'm saying. That'd have been pretty
absolutely.
Cool.
I'm with you.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Andre Tonsel said, how about just beating USC, LSU, and Alabama to win a championship? That'd be a pretty clean path.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
That.
I think in my projection, I have Notre Dame beating LSU, Bama, and then Texas.
Yeah. Irish for Life 99 says Notre Dame should never schedule that cheating program in Arbor. Michigan is a scumbag program. I mean, I've kind of made the case that I don't want Notre Dame to play them in the regular season. It's a different animal in the playoff. It just is. It would be a very different animal. And as a college football fan, I think that'd be pretty epic. Plus, you get a chance to beat them without having to schedule them and pay them to come play you. It's even better.
I am Tenzin. What's the crazier fan take? Miami fans saying they'll win in a blowout, or Notre Dame fans saying that they'll win in a blowout?
It's an easy Miami fan saying they're going to win in a blowout. I don't think either team should be claiming a blowout, but the team that's got the best odds to do it and the fans who have the right to talk about it is the fan base of the team who beat Georgia Tech last year, not the one that got beat by Georgia Tech. Each of the last 2 years, by the way. Like, it's absolute nonsense that Miami fans think they're going to blow out Notre Dame. Nonsense. I think Notre Dame fans are getting a little ahead of themselves predicting Miami to get to Notre Dame to blow out Miami, but it's a lot more possible than the other way around based on matchups. Now, games can go any kind of way, as Notre Dame found out the last time they went down and played in Miami. But we're talking about somebody predicting it. I don't think either team should predict it. But the team who has, like, played in the same number of ACC title games as Notre Dame should probably not be talking about Notre Dame not being a proven team. So just saying. That's a little nuts.
No, it's a very clear answer. Very clear answer. Miami
like
fans.
There's some weird energy coming out of that place, man. Like, there was some guy that writes for covers the team, was talking about how Notre Dame's running back room is overrated because their quarterback rushed for more yards than their number 2 running back. Like, that's one of the most ignorant, nonsensical things I've ever heard in my entire life. So their running back room is not as good as you think because their quarterback was a dynamic runner. That is the dumbest freaking thing I've ever heard. It's like, what? Are you serious? It's very dumb. Very, very dumb.
Yeah.
It's a dumb fan base.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how you can look at what that team accomplished or what they didn't accomplish last year with who they had and think it's going to be that much better this year. I don't see where the disconnect is. You had the number 1 overall draft pick. You had an 1,000-yard rusher, and you didn't make the playoffs, and you lost the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Okay. But I guess now that translates over into, all right. All right.
And Trev, I have said this. I tell you all the time, dude, I like being fair. I like being objective. I don't like we don't do the homer thing here. If Cam Ward does not sit out the bowl game, second half of the bowl game, Miami wins that game. Having said that, Cam Ward's not the reason they gave up 42 freaking points. Iowa State only scored 14 points in the second half when Cam Ward was on the bench. The other 28 they scored in the first half of that game. And it was still 31-28 at halftime against Iowa State. So, yeah, you should probably pipe down a little bit. And let's not also forget that not only did Miami have the number 1 overall draft pick, Trev, but they had a tight end get picked in round 2. They had, 4 or 5. They had 7 overall draft picks, one more than Notre Dame. They lost, I think, their top 5 or 6 pass catchers. 5 all gone. It's like, hey, man, you might want to shut your pie hole a little bit because you sound ridiculous. Yeah. IGK said, I heard a Miami podcast, Locked On, say that Miami has a greater chance of winning the national championship than losing to Notre Dame. Locked On, I ain't even say it. I respect Brian Smith and the job he does, and that's my dude. He didn't say that, and that's all I'm going to say about Locked On. So that's a terrible take. That's an absolutely terrible take. It's like the meme from Billy Madison. At no point did you even come close to saying anything coherent. We're all dumber for having to sit through that. That's pretty much what that is, Trevor.
Yeah, it's just a common theme of people that follow, play for, and or coach teams that didn't make the playoffs feel the need to say some nonsense this offseason. It'll get handled.
Yeah.
Alex Flagstad, what opponent pass catcher versus Notre Dame DB matchup are you most looking forward to this season? I think mine is Mekhi Lemon versus Devontae Smith.
I dig that. I think that's going to be a really good one, Alex. Especially after what Mekhi Lemon did to them last year. Like, that is going to be a good one. You could do another one would be, depending, I don't know who's going to play the slot for Texas A&M, but Devontae against them. who's going to line up against Casey Concepcion? Where do they is he their slot? Is Mario Craver going to be the slot? Is Terry Bussey going to be the slot? Like, how are they going to have that duo or that trio working together? That's another good one, Trev. But Notre Dame safeties against Justin Jolly is going to be a great matchup. Great matchup. Christian Gray against Noah Rogers, NC State's another one that I am looking forward to seeing. So that'll be also a very, very good one. Very good one. What say you, Trev?
Mine was going to be a Notre Dame safety on Justin Jolly. That matchup's going to be electric.
Yep. Yeah. I do like the Devontae Smith, Mekhi Lemon one. That's if you didn't give us an example, Alex, probably the first one we go to.
Yep. Hidden one, a Notre Dame linebacker on Desmond Reed when they play Pitt.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
That's going to be a real good one. That'll be one fun to watch, and probably one of my keys to victory for Notre Dame. His linebackers managing running backs out of the backfield in that game, for sure.
Good question.
Another one from Ian Tenzin. Congrats on a fun first episode of the spread option. While T-Rev and Vince aren't pro bettors, may they have growing success as they dive further into the numbers each week. Well, Tenzin, I, along with my bank account, appreciate you on the ongoing success of the spread option. But seriously, thank you. The show was a lot of fun last night. It really was. If you guys haven't seen it, I saw a question earlier in the chat today about how we should do a show about different betting odds and different games. And pleased to tell you that over on our CFB Nation channel, you can find all of that. We're going to go live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the spread option. So it's a lot of fun. You got to make sure that you are a part of it this season. Getting into part 3 of the Irish Breakdown podcast. It is the Friday free-for-all mailbag here, brought to you by FanDuel, our new partners for the 2025 season. Tenzin is going to get us going here in part 3. With the talk of the major conferences moving to 9 conference games, this will actually hinder a group of 5 schools and not Notre Dame.
Absolutely. There's this people that keep thinking teams don't want to play Notre Dame. And that just – here's what we keep telling you guys. What is the one thing that drives all of these conversations? What is it, Trev? What's the one thing that is why they're having the playoff crap that we're dealing with, the 9 conference games, the playoff, the conferences realignment? What's it all driven by? Exactly. Trevor's showing you the money sign for those watching or listening, not watching. 100% correct, Trev. Well, what else makes you money? What guarantees millions of dollars coming into not only your program, but your community? Host Notre Dame. Play Notre Dame. Get Notre Dame to play a home and home with you. Because number one, they're going to pay you good money to come play there. And then when they come into your town, you're going to jack hotel rates way up. You know, you're going to make millions when Notre Dame comes into town. Because that happens everywhere they go. So they're going to be greedy in everything they do, except they're not going to play Notre Dame. That's their righteous stand. We won't play the team that can help us make a ton of money by hosting them. It's illogical. So, and so I think Tenzin is right. You're going to see a lot of those MAC teams aren't going to have as many of these opportunities since there's that fewer opportunities to play certain teams. But they're still going to get them. It's just not going to be as many. It's not like the G5 is going to get completely iced out. I think who could end up getting really hurt by this is FCS teams. I think that's who might get hurt. But like if some of these teams like, look, we're going to still schedule FCS teams. That means that leaves, so like for the SEC, if they're going to still schedule an FCS team, that leaves them with what? One other game? That's a lot fewer opportunities to go out there and play a Sun Belt team or a Conference USA team. So I agree. I think if it hurts anybody, it'll hurt those schools more. But I think if anything, if I had to guess, I think it's going to hurt FCS teams even more than G5 teams.
Agreed. They should go hit up that program out in Happy Valley. They'd happily schedule you for all 3 of their non-conference games.
There's also one in Bloomington, Indiana that will do the same thing. Apparently there's a lot of Big Ten teams not named Ohio State who have no problem playing a bunch of cream puffs in their non-conference.
Mm-hmm. From Don Lloyd, what do you think of the new strength of schedule metric? Do you think this might have nudged the SEC to do what they did, since this affects many of their non-conference opponents this year?
Trev, have you really dove into the actual metric of it?
No, I've just seen the reports of it's going to be weighed heavier now in evaluating playoff teams, but I don't know what the individual metric
going to hurt you more if you lose to a team. And Don, I haven't done enough of a deep dive into that, other than just being able to say, from what I've seen and the way it's been reported, I do believe this is going to incentivize people to not play tougher non-conference games. That's because if you're in the SEC and your conference gets overhyped anyway in strength of schedule, what's your incentive to play at Notre Dame, an Ohio State, a Michigan? There isn't any. That's my concern. Which is why a Penn State, like what the Big Ten's already doing outside of Ohio State, who has never, in my opinion, Ohio State's never been a program that's going to back down from an out-of-conference fight. Now, they don't play like 3 Notre Dame, Alabama, and Texas out of conference, but like they've played Notre Dame in recent years. They've played Oklahoma. They've got a schedule against
Oregon.
Georgia coming up. They've got Texas. They did schedule Oregon before Oregon joined the league. They played them back in 21. Weren't they supposed to play in 20 as well, and that got canceled because of COVID?
Mm-hmm.
I think Oregon, they were supposed to go out to Oregon, I think is what, I could be wrong on that. But they've always been willing to play teams. In 05 and 06, they played Texas. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was the game that kind of launched Texas that season, was that game where the tight end dropped the ball at the end of the game and Texas got that huge win. Michigan used to be that way till Jim Harbaugh was like, nah, we're good. But you're going to see more teams in these 9 leagues going to say, well, look at Penn State, what they're doing. They played a crap schedule. They went 10-2 in their league, and they still made the playoff. Why? Well, their strength of schedule is this, because of the hype of, oh, well, you're in the Big Ten, so you must play a tough schedule. Unfortunately, that's going to be the case.
Yeah, not wrong.
I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.
From Greg O with the 2-parter, when Denbrock said on Sunday, right now, we're doing a pretty good job of shooting ourselves in the foot, and we're going through the growing pains. Does that speak more to A, Denbrock's personality, B, concerning offensive struggles, or C, something else?
I think it's A and B. Denbrock is, I mean, he was not shy of using that media session to challenge his offense, challenge Elijah Burris, challenge his offense. There's some turnover things happening they don't like. For example, I was told that one of the turnovers in the scrimmage on Sunday was a receiver ran a wrong route. There were a lot of false start issues. Those are also examples of him shooting themselves in the foot. It's 3rd and 2, false start. Now it's 3rd and 7. It's concerning offensive struggles for where you are in camp. And he's getting to the point now where it's like, guys, we got to work this stuff out. We're not in week 1 of camp anymore. And so I'm going to challenge my offense to do better. So I think it's certainly, if he was concerned enough about it, to call his offense out for it in the press conference. Because a lot of times coaches like Mike Denbrock, they're smart, savvy dudes. That's not meant for us as much as it's meant for his players. And that's what good coaches do. Brian Kelly was actually really good. That's one of the things he was really good at, was getting messages to his team through the media, especially early in his career. He got a little bit weird about it. Like later in his career, he just would say these really weird things. Like he was trying to be too clever. But early in his career, first 5 years, he was very good about getting comments like that out to the media, to his team through the media, including like encouragement. Like, oh, man, just this young guy, boy, he's not going to help us now. But, man, bright future. I remember he said something about that when Alex Bars was a freshman, or redshirt freshman maybe, and he wasn't starting. But he was like, man, this guy could really help us, and he's going to help us someday. He might be the best guy. He was pretty good about stuff like that early in his tenure. That's what that was. But it's also being said because the issues are persistent and he wants them to stop. So it's a little bit of both. Good question, Greg. Very good question.
Beezer 12, Washing Beard. What are some teams this season that we should bet the under when it comes to the season win totals?
This is all you, Trev.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, Bees, that's a pretty good question, man. I mean, when you start looking at some win totals, and FanDuel doesn't like to make it easy on us because they sort it by conference. But, I mean, for the unders, one that I would be paying attention to is Tennessee's. Right now, their over-under is set at 8.5. I think Tennessee could be in for a little bit of a rough year. Now, their over-under, like I said, set at 8.5 wins. For the over, it's plus 122. So they also think that they're going to be under 9 wins. So that's one that I would keep an eye out for. And then another one that I would be keeping my eye out for as well is Michigan's regular season over-under. Their over-under is set at 9.5. There's a lot of people that are really high on Michigan this season. And that's one that I do not see this being a 10-win football team. I would strongly consider betting the under for their wins. That's just a program that I just don't see being what a lot of other people are seeing them as. I truly don't. So I would keep an eye on them. I would definitely keep an eye on them as well for the under. Those are kind of my big two.
Yep. Absolutely. The Michigan thing, man, I really don't get that.
I saw I might have been watching Crane and Co., but I think they had Michigan as an 8 or 9 seed in their playoff projections. I've seen other people put Michigan in the playoffs. They're the 14th ranked team. Yeah, Joel Klatt did. I mean, I don't know, man. Call me a hater, but like this has nothing to do with my feelings about them as a fan. This is an analytical. I look at that team, and I just don't see a playoff team. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up his show. He had Michigan in as an 11 seed playing Oregon. He also had LSU coming up to play Notre Dame. He had Notre Dame as the 7 seed. And LSU is a 10 seed. And then, of course, Notre Dame losing to Texas in the second round, of course. But he's got Clemson winning it all. Penn State beating Alabama in the quarterfinals as the number 1 seed. Whatever. But that if you got Penn State being the 1 seed, that tells me you got Penn State beating Ohio State at Ohio State. He had Ohio State as the 4 seed.
I'll tell you one thing, Bees, that I would do though. I would go check out Army's over-under. Their over-under is set at 8.5, and their over is set at minus 118. That is juicy. And so I would check that out. I know you asked about unders, but I would strongly suggest taking a look at the over for the old midshipman.
Grizz says Michigan also can't be worse than last year at moving the ball. They have a chance with that schedule to make the playoffs. Number one, I don't think their schedule is super cakewalk. They got to play at Oklahoma. They got to play at Nebraska, at USC, at Michigan State, at Northwestern. They're capable of losing all but one of those games. They're certainly capable of losing to Oklahoma. They're capable of losing to Nebraska, USC, and Michigan State. There's no question. They barely beat USC last year. Then at home, their home slate, they get Wisconsin, Washington, Purdue, should win all those, but then they've got to play Ohio State. I don't think that's like an easy path to the playoff. And this notion of, well, they did what they did last year with a bad offense. Yeah, I get that. Their offense was really bad last year, but is their defense going to be as good as it was last year? Well, their offensive line won't be as good as it was. I mean, it's not everything's coming back, but you've got a new quarterback.
Well, and I think the thing that bothers me is this right here, Grizz, is the main argument for Michigan. It's by default.
Right.
There's no way it can be worse than last year, so they have to be better. Not the case.
But better doesn't equal playoffs. Like, that's the other thing is like, okay, yeah, let's just say they are better. Well, how does that all of a sudden get them to the 11 seed? Like, that part I just don't understand. So, and they were very close to losing a couple of the games. They did win last year. They weren't as close to losing games. They lost by 19 to Texas. They lost by 10 to Washington. They lost by 14 to Illinois. They lost by 21 to Oregon. They lost by 5 to Indiana in a game where they scored last to make it or they scored last to make it 17-15. At one point in time at halftime, they were down 17-3. And Indiana played about as bad as they could have played in that game and still beat them. So I just don't see it, man. I just don't see this Michigan path to the playoffs. And I would argue they're going to be better at quarterback, but I don't think they're as good at pass catching. They don't have Colson Loveland.
They're also not as good on the offensive line.
Agree. Mason Grant, their defensive line is still good, but you just don't lose Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Chris Jenkins in a 2-year stretch and just think that you're just going to be every bit as good as you were.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it.
Yep.
And I don't think they realize, again, I shouldn't even say it, Trev. I shouldn't say it because I've been saying this for years. I just don't think that they caught every single break they could possibly catch against Ohio State last year, including Ohio State once again overlooking Michigan. Just every fluky play, the ball could have bounced, and it keeps doing that to a degree in the last couple of years. But I just have a feeling that's going to be a really rough game for them. But I also said that in 2022, and I thought it was going to be the case in last year, and but eventually, like, here's my thing: when Ohio State breaks the streak, it's going to be bad. Like, it won't be a 17-14 walk-off field goal. It won't be that. It'll be like years of frustrations are going to be taken out on them. That's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't think you're wrong there, buddy.
Yeah. I'm going to keep saying it every offseason, and eventually it's going to happen. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm eventually going to be right. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And I'm going to keep picking Ohio State because the year that I pick Michigan to finally beat them, meaning I'm picking Michigan, and Michigan's been beating them, is the year that Ohio State will beat them by 60. Just because that's my luck. This is a good one right here.
From Play Like a Champ, what player are you most excited to see develop over the course of the season? Who will we be talking about at the end of the year and saying, wow, he took a huge jump from game 1 to game 15 to 16?
I'm going to let you start, Trev, because I have a bad habit sometimes since we have a lot of shared opinions of taking your pick. So I'm going to let you go first.
I have 2 different answers for this one. One is I'll give you one from just like that would be a super awesome story. And then I'll give you one of it kind of needs to happen. And I'll give you the needs to happen first. I hope we're having that conversation about Anthony Knapp at left tackle. I hope that we talk about, man, the strides that he made from last year and then at game 1 against Miami to, whatever game that they're at in the playoffs. I hope we talk about a huge jump that Notre Dame's left tackle made, because I don't think they're going to be able to reach their ceiling and get to game 15 or 16 unless he has that type of jump or has an impact performance like that. So he's probably that one. But as far as development goes, from he took a huge jump, hopefully CJ Carr.
That was immediately what the people in the chat were saying. Like,
Yeah.
CJ Carr. Somebody said Eli Raridan. I think your answers are good. Go ahead, Trev. You got another one?
I was thinking about Eli Raridan. I just don't think it's going to be from game 1 to game 16. I think Trev's thinking, I don't know how much better you can get in game 16 with how I think he's going to play in game 1. So here's one for me is Tay Johnson. I think that's a big one for me. I have a feeling that somebody up front, some D tackle that doesn't do a whole lot in game 1, like an Armo Mukum, somebody like that by the end of the year, all of a sudden we're talking a ton about him. I could see something like that. If Gerby Lambert gets to game 15, 16 as a starter, that's another one that I'm going to want to talk about as well. So those are ones that popped in my head, Trevor. Of course, and then, of course, it's CJ Carr is another one as well. Those are good answers. Very good answers. Yeah, Don Lloyd and I are on the same page. He said Tay Johnson as well. I would love that.
Yep. And no, Archer, I'm not going to pick Michigan this year just for you because I need to be right about this one, okay? I've invested a lot of years into this prediction, okay?
Archer, I'll pick Michigan for you. I already did. We did our Big Ten preview. I have Michigan winning, so you're welcome, I guess.
Yeah. But
From
did you
Law
pick
Dog.
Michigan to win last year? Like
No.
preseason?
No.
You picked Ohio State to win. Right?
Yeah, I had the same mentality as everybody else. I was like, it could get ugly like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at
It
home.
should have.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't wrong in the ugly aspect. That was a
Mhm.
very ugly football game, just not in the favor of Archer or 102,000 other people in that attendance for that game. From Law Dog, is pass protection the single most important thing you'll be watching for when the game starts?
Yeah. And there's how CJ Carr reading defenses. Are they stopping the run? Are they running the ball? Those things are all important. But if I had to pick one thing that I'm watching for, it's probably pass pro. It's not that it's the most important thing, but more, like as far as it's the biggest impact on the game, but it's the biggest question mark that I have on the offense. That's why I would say it's the thing that I'll be watching when the game starts.
Yep.
Because I do think that will have an impact on what we see from 13 as the game evolves.
Agreed.
If that first drive, he's running for his life and getting hit, that's going to be a bad way to start that game. Bad way to start that game. What about you, Trev? What's the single most important thing you'll be watching for when that game starts?
It's pass protection. I was trying to think of a different answer of, the downfield passing game or, how the secondary looks in a potentially new coverage game. It just doesn't trump pass protection for me. I'm with you. From Greg O, which do you think has a greater potential to open up the run game? A mobile quarterback like Riley Leonard, or a passing game that pushes more downfield like, hopefully, CJ Carr?
I still think it's the quarterback that can throw. Like, obviously, a quarterback who can run impacts the game, but I'd rather have a Kyler Murray who can run for 1,000 yards and throw for 4,000 yards. I think that's just the impact that I have. I mean, both help the run game, but I think if you're going to defend a run game a little bit more effectively, that's why Notre Dame at times struggled to run the ball in the postseason. Is more talented teams could get an extra hat in the box. And they were athletic enough to maybe not let some of those runs that we thought other teams had go. They could beat Notre Dame a little bit more in the trenches, which meant creases weren't as big as they were in the regular season. I don't want to discount the fact that Jeremiah Love was injured, but Darian Price's yards per carry average also went way down in the postseason. It wasn't just Jeremiah being hurt.
It went down by a whole yard, to your point,
Yeah.
Brian. He entered the postseason averaging 7.2 yards per carry and finished the season averaging 6.2 yards a carry.
And they were both over 7 when the playoffs started.
They were.
Neither of them were when it was over. So I just think the line got beat against Georgia. The line got beat against Penn State. The line got beat by Ohio State. And at that point in time, it didn't matter what your quarterback was. You needed somebody who could hurt them down the field to get the numbers out of the box. And I think that's why I think that has a greater impact. They're both impactful, but that's why I think that has a greater impact. Good question, Greg. Couldn't get that out. Like
the old tongue twister, old Friday tongue twister, man.
Good question, Greg. Man.
PJC 1122. If they all hit their potential by 2027, the possible secondary of Blair, O'Brien, Golden, Adams, and Zachary is extremely exciting. Highest ceiling since 88 to 93, or is it higher?
Higher. Like the secondaries from 88 to 93 were excellent. There was always like one guy who was good but not great. If those guys all hit their potential, those are all, I think every single one of those guys has a 5-star upside. The only one that I'm pretty sure I had Mark Zachary as a 5-star upside guy, Trev. Let me go look at last year's class rankings, but I'm pretty sure I did. Let me go here. Mark Zachary. Yeah, no, I had him at 4.5-star upside grade. I could end up wishing that I had him as a 5-star upside grade, but that's out of a top 50 player. So Mark Zachary at 4.5 would be the lowest. I know Blair's a 5-star. I'm pretty sure I have Joey O'Brien as a 5-star upside guy. So yeah, I would say that that's a pretty good bet that is because what's the weakness, Trevor? Who's the just okay player in that group if they all reach their potential?
There is no okay player.
Because like even if I'm right of Mark Zachary is a 4.5 star upside grade, that's a top 50 player. So your worst guy is pick number 59 in the draft, accounting for other underclassmen and stuff like that. 65th best player is drafted late second, early third. That's your quote unquote worst guy. If they all reach their ceilings and I'm right about their ceilings, like it's better than anything I've ever seen. It's also unlikely because you just don't always see everyone reach their full potential. But even if only 3 of those guys reach their full potential and 2 get 75% of the way there, that's still an elite secondary. That starts looking like 88 to 93.
That's just a crazy lineup to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Man.
And Mark Zachary's the small guy in that group at 6 foot with ridiculously long arms. That's the small guy in that group.
Mac Irish, I haven't heard much about CJ's personality. Do you have any intel on how he is as a leader? Riley was fearless, calm, and positive when things got bad. Do we see that from CJ?
CJ is a very different personality than Riley. Not better, not worse, just different. He's a little bit more intense, a little bit more fiery. I had somebody from the Jersey scrimmage that was like, CJ at one point in time kind of got into the offense a little bit, and like you could all hear it. And that's kind of what you want your leader at quarterback to do. If we're not playing well, quarterback's going to get in our face a little bit and let us know about it. I think CJ is going to lead very differently than Riley Leonard. And I'm trying to think how to say this because I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday that's got some really good intel on this as well. And we were talking about all the things we've heard because he said, he called me, he's like, he had heard somebody talk about, about Riley not being a leader. And I was like, I don't know where that's coming from. That's absolutely not what I'm hearing. If anything, we've heard that he was actually the leader, more of a leader. Kenny was more of a quiet, great teammate, but not like the take charge of the room kind of guy. CJ is. And like where this would come from, like where did this nonsense come from? And it was like, his thought was, I think because CJ, he's at press conferences and somebody's like, he looked shook. No, he didn't. That's just CJ. He's just a very serious, like when it's football wise, he's fun off the field, like he's very serious. He's very focused, very driven. And he's got a little bit of I'm trying to think of the word to use that doesn't sound bad, but he's got a little bit of an ego. It's a little bit, intense. And it was like, yeah, but isn't that like, name me a great quarterback that wasn't that way? We started like John Elway, that tracks. Tom Brady, yep. Brett Favre, yep. Joe Montana, yep. Dan Marino, yep. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, yep. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, yep, that tracks. I mean, like, that's kind of what you get from a great quarterback. He's going to have an ego. He's going to be a little bit, in your face at times. That's what, to me, makes great quarterbacks great because they're going to hold themselves and everyone else around them to a certain standard. Now, with the young quarterback, you got to play to a certain standard first. But the natural leadership traits are there. His issue was simply just about you've got to throw the ball better in certain situations and not turn it over here or there. But that's from all the people I've ever talked to at Notre Dame about or inside or people who know somebody at Notre Dame. The one thing that no one has ever brought up to me ever is whether or not CJ Carr is a leader or not. And anyone questioning that has really bad sources on that.
Yeah, when I think about them as leaders, I kind of think and I don't know CJ, I've told you guys this before. I don't have the sources that Brian does, but from the outside looking in, I think to Brian's point about them just being different, not better, not worse, just different. Riley kind of reminds me of like a Dabo Sweeney type of leader, kind of like that aw shucks, like that Southern boy type of mentality of like, oh man, I just, hoping for the best out there. But he also has the edge to him where it's like you don't want to get on his bad side because he is still a gamer. Reminds me of Dabo. And CJ kind of reminds me of like Freeman in a sense, like stoic, like very serious, outside of football can still have fun, but in there he'll kind of get after you if he needs to. But like Riley, yeah, different types of leadership, but that's kind of my comparison. And that's just like an outside opinion, but no, not better, not worse, just different. Super chat from Michael S. In the past, coming out of fall camp, have you seen where the major quarterback concerns was interceptions?
Jimmy Clausen, sophomore year, 2008.
Oh, coming into 08?
08, yeah. And it was an issue at times. I mean, honestly, the issue with past quarterbacks has been more in line with what the knock we heard about Kenny was. It's just they're not pushing the ball down the field. They also haven't had secondaries that are going to attack the way that this secondary does either.
Yeah, true.
It's a little bit last year. We heard a little bit about it last year. There just wasn't as much of a need to focus on it because we knew the starting quarterback was. But there was definitely some talk about it last year. Other than that, I really honestly can't think of it since 08. It's another quarterback question that I'll get to. We have a couple super chats when I wanted to get to this one first.
Guns N' Roses, Coach, can you detail your reaction when Notre Dame announced CJ as the starter?
I was scrambling a little bit. I think I shared this the other day. So I was upstairs getting ready to take a shower and get ready for our 1 o'clock show. And all of a sudden Trevor calls me and he's like, tells me what happened. He's like, dude, they just named CJ the starting quarterback. And I think my first response was, no way. I was like, seriously? Like, I was shocked.
Yeah, the first thing you said was, no, they didn't.
No, they did. So he's like, no, dude, seriously.
I was like, they posted it on Twitter.
I was like, man, I looked at it. I was like, holy crap. And then I immediately was like, okay, we got a story to do. So changing our podcast. So I get into, okay, let's get ready for that. So I hang up the phone with Trevor. I go to the top of the stairs. I yelled at my wife because she had a lady was over here helping us get the house ready for her mom to come in town for her surgery because they had to like set up a bed for her and different things like that for her to be in. And so, because this happened, wasn't it? It was Tuesday, right? So it was like 2 days before her surgery. So we're getting everything ready for the house. So when she got home from the surgery, the house is all ready for it and all that kind of stuff. And like clearing walkways and different things like that. So I'm like, Ange, like, bring me my computer because I couldn't go downstairs. I would have had to. I had to go downstairs. I couldn't go downstairs or we were going to get a lawsuit. And so I said, I need my laptop. And she goes, why? And I said, they just named CJ Carr the starter. And so she brings me the laptop up. I completely changed the show. I make a new card, change the title of all that. And then got in the shower, got down here. We start the show. And as we're doing the show, I'm writing a story about CJ Carr being named starting quarterback. So it was really just getting into, I was shocked. I said I was shocked because of all the intel we had heard. It was going to be Kenny. And so I had to get some stuff ready. But you know what's funny, Trev? Despite being told by no less than 10 sources from Thursday to Sunday that it was going to be Kenny Minchie, I never wrote the story. And normally I will. When I get that much intel, like when I know a kid's going to commit, I'll have the story written. People say, how do you get stories up? Like, how do you get a class impact and a commitment story? Like, because I already have them written. Like, they're already done. But I only ever do that when I know something's going to happen. Like, if a kid's going to commit and I don't know what he's going to do, I don't write the story just in case. I think that's bad. Plus, with the way that our platform is, other sites can read stories we have slated, and I don't want to have somebody see that and be like, oh, but I just I just didn't feel like I'm going to write it. So I thought that was interesting, but yeah, it was more just kind of surprising, like going to scramble mode of, I got to get, our whole show is going to change now. And I got to get a new card, change it and do all that. And then still bathe and get ready for the show. So yeah, that was my, yeah.
I was just relieved, not because they picked my guy. I was just happy that Notre Dame had announced a starter.
Yeah.
Literally earlier that day, I called Brian and I was like, no, I'm sitting here watching every football team in America name their starting quarterback. And I just don't know if we're ever going to find out Notre Dame's. I mean, it was rough. I was just relieved that they named one.
Yeah. Guns N' Roses says, I legitimately thought somebody was going to get fired in the media department. That thought crossed my mind. Yeah. And I don't take baths. I said I had to bathe. To me, that's what I do in the shower. I still bathe in the shower. I don't take baths. I'm taking a bath since I was a child. So it was a shower. Did I say I was going to get in the bath, or did I don't remember.
No, you just said I had to bathe.
Yeah. So no, I don't take baths. Although we did get a new, like when we had the whole redo of the bathroom that flooded, my wife did get a bathtub that you can do as a jacuzzi. Still don't think I'm gonna get in there. But yeah, she's a big fan. She likes it. That's all that matters.
I could use a spa day. That'd be nice.
Okay, we're going to move right past that one.
Lauren, if you're watching, I would love a spa day. Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. What do you think of Auburn claiming 9 national champions and 15 conference championships in a span of like 2 days? Talk about Lil Bro to Bama.
I think it's stupid and lame. But didn't they just apply Bama standard? Like, did I read that where they basically just applied Bama standard that if anybody voted them champions, they were going to claim it?
Something.
It's like if I saw somewhere that if Notre Dame claimed Alabama's if Notre Dame claimed championships the way that Alabama claims championships, they'd have 22 national championships. And Alabama has 18 claimed championships, including a year that Notre Dame also claims as a championship because Notre Dame beat them in the Sugar Bowl. But one of the outlets gave their championship before the postseason, so Bama claims it. So Notre Dame would have 22. So I believe, I could be wrong, I believe, somebody correct me there, but I believe that they basically just sort of applied a standard similar to Alabama's, which is lame because like one of the years, I don't think they were eligible to play in the postseason. They were on probation. One of the years they claimed the championship, they were on probation. So it's just dumb.
Yeah, it's silly.
Stupid. I just think there's going to come a point in time where Notre Dame is just going to say, okay, F all y'all. And you want to start claiming championships? Cool. We're going to claim all of them the same way you do, and we got 22 of them. How about them apples? Mm-hmm. That's what you're eventually – I would love for Notre Dame to do that. If like all these schools keep doing that. But, well, I would like to see them do that, but then I also wouldn't like to see them do that. Part of me is like, no, you still stay true to what is right. But just some of it gets so lame after a while, Trev. It just does.
No, I agree. Berto 2021 with the big super chat. Appreciate you. It will be 5,376 hours from the national championship to Miami. Half that time spent on Irish Breakdown. Thanks for the great summer content and looking forward to the season and analysis. Go Irish.
I appreciate that, man. And I do appreciate that you've spent so much time with us. It means a lot. It really does mean a lot. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. I was saying 537.6. Is that like the number of offensive yards they're going to average this year? I mean, we could have some fun with these numbers. Have some fun with them. But I appreciate that, man. So IGK said a BD and Trev bro spa day would be hilarious content. It would be hilarious. It'll never happen. Trev can do the spa day. I'm good. I will.
They're nice, man. Go get you a massage or something.
I don't like massages. I don't. No. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't like people rubbing my feet. I don't like massages. No, they either tickle or they hurt. Like, because I obviously used to get, I got massages when I was in college, but they weren't like fun massages or relaxing massages. They were, you're injured and you've got to work out some. So maybe that's it. Because like the first 50 massages I ever got were like, this freaking hurts. Yeah, it wasn't like a spa day. It was
relaxing.
Your shoulders jacked up and we got to fix it. You know, I mean, that's kind of what it was. So maybe that's it. But like, I don't like rubbing feet and I don't like having my feet rubbed, which sucks because my wife loves having her feet rubbed. So I'm like, look, if you've recently bathed and you have clean socks on, I will rub your feet. But I just buy her a bunch of stuff like, hey, here's this for feet rubs, and here's this. You get a monthly, a weekly massage envy thing. So I just do that. But yeah, I do not like massages because it either, like I said, it either hurts or tickles. I don't like being tickled either. That's my cousin's fault. I grew up with a lot of older female cousins, and they would like pin me down when I was a kid, and they would just tickle me, and I freaking hate. So I hate being tickled. It's like if my wife and I are having if we're like playing around and she starts tickling me, I'm like, moment ruined. Like it's done. All right, that was fun till you just went and ruined it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nope, pass. So no, I'm not a spa day guy. It's like when first time my dad told me he got a pedicure, I was like, man, you are soft. You like, I don't know what happened to you, man. Like, what happened to you? But I also felt that way the first time he ordered like this really fruity alcoholic drink one time. I was like, man, what? Well, you need some bro friends, man. I don't know what happened to you. Like, you need some dudes as friends. No, I love busting his chops about that. Yeah. Oh, I like a pedicure. And he starts explaining to me. I was like, stop. You're only going to make it worse. You're only going to make it worse. Oh, my goodness.
Tommy Guns, which major historical figure from before 1700 would you bring back to give a pregame speech in English, regardless of that person's naturally spoken language, and lead the team into the field?
Besides Jesus? Julius Caesar, Caesar Augustus, maybe Hannibal, pre-1700. I don't know. Jesus would be a good one for me. That's about the only. I think he could probably give a good speech to Notre Dame before a game. But I don't know. There's some great Roman generals that were known for inspiring their troops. Hannibal, who fought against the Romans, was pretty good about that. So, yeah, other than that, I don't know. Don't know if I have a whole lot. I would say maybe, Genghis Khan, but he was pretty awful. So I don't really want to give him a good spotlight.
Yeah,
not that the Romans were great. They were pretty awful too, but he was especially not good. Yeah.
Genghis Khan was the first person that popped into my head, and I was like, probably shouldn't be mine.
You know what, man? I didn't need him to pull out a sword and do that to that dude to try to prove a point during a pregame speech. That was come like out of my element now. Like, that was uncalled for. It's like, we didn't need to see that pregame. Oh my goodness, we're going off the rails. Let's get back.
Another one from Nate. Does Carr's ability to throw outside the numbers or to throw a more catchable 50-50 ball separate him from Minchie, considering teams are likely to stack the box all year, just like what Texas A&M did last year?
I mean, that's definitely part of it. I think it's also just about he's just better overall. It's not so much who protects the run game more, but just who's better. But that's, as far as evaluating who's better, I think that's definitely a part of it. It's definitely a part of, I just think that's part of it. It's definitely part of it. Just a willingness to take shots down the field, an ability to hit shots down the field. Certainly part of it.
Andrew Sokolowski. Can't wait to introduce my 3-week-old son to college football tomorrow. I'll teach him what we are going to be looking for when Notre Dame and Miami kicks off. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Andrew, I hope that he is wearing the IB onesie that you got sent.
That's awesome. Another one from Andrew. Based on preseason projection, which team is the toughest matchup for Notre Dame on paper?
We've been pretty consistent about this one, Trevor. It's Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the best combination of O-line, D-line that Notre Dame's going to face this season. They have a far more experienced receiving core than what Miami will have in that game. Now, Miami Week 10 might be a different story when all those pass catchers get a lot of experience, but they don't have that right now, whereas Casey Concepcion's played a lot of football. Terry Bussey has not played a lot, but he has experience. Mario Craver's not as experienced, but has played. And then you've got a dynamic running back room that's a little bit more proven than Miami's. Miami's is very good, but they were all numbers of 2s and 3s. where A&M's has got some proven number ones, or at least one proven number one.
Yep.
And I think their deep secondary is like all returners except maybe one, depending. And that's only if someone beats out someone that's already there. I mean, they could have an entire. I think their only DB they lost from last year was their nickel. I think, right? Isn't their nickel the only guy that they lost from last year in the secondary? Will Lee's back. Des Riz is back. Des Ricks is back.
Humphrey. Yeah, their nickels.
Dylan Brooks is back, and Bryce Anderson's back.
Yeah, it's their nickel.
So, and then they've got arguably the best linebacking core that Notre Dame's going to face. It's arguable because I think Pitt is my pick as best linebacker room, but I don't think we should just ignore that it's a no-brainer that Texas has that. So that would be my thing. That I would say there's more balance, more proven, more experienced, and I think have a better coach. That's where I'm at.
I'm with you. Texas A&M for sure. From ND for Life, good afternoon, gentlemen. Which group are you in when it comes to the new Notre Dame sports-specific leprechaun logos?
I want to hear your thoughts on this first, Trev.
I mean, honestly, it's sports-specific. From what it's been told to me, it's not, from my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's more of like an alternate logo. Like it's not taking place. Like when Notre Dame is a university, you still have like the Fighting Leprechaun. Now they're just going to have alternate sports-specific ones. When it's changes like this, I guess it just doesn't impact me that much. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I guess I'm just relatively impartial. So I don't know what group that puts me in, but I think it's fine.
So my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the logo hasn't changed to this. The main logo, to your point, is if it's just University of Notre Dame, it's the Fighting Irish guy. And then when they release the basketball one, it'll be something with a basketball, that kind of thing. Correct?
That's how I'm understanding it as well.
My thing is if you would have gotten rid of the Fighting Irish guy, I probably wouldn't have liked that. Because I think that I still would want to. I still like the original logo.
Yeah,
but the football specific one, I have no problem with, as long as they're keeping the other one. Because here's the thing: it's like it's still the same guy. Like when you look at it, the hat's the same. Like I'm looking at two photos right now. I'm looking at the old logo and the new logo. Same face, same leprechaun. The only difference is now he's got a football in his hand as he's running, and his shoes look slightly different. But the face is like exactly the same. The hat's exactly the same. It's just now he's got a football in his hand. Still looks ticked off. Like, I think it's pretty cool. Now, I want to see what it's going to look like for other sports. I mean, maybe looks lame for, like, what's the lacrosse one going to look like? You know what I mean? Like, what's the fencing one going to look like? And maybe they don't. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like. Are they going to do one for every sport? Like, what's the swimming one? I'd better not see the freaking leprechaun in the bathing suit. Like, say jokingly. But I'm like, dude, it's still the same leprechaun. They didn't like Cracker Barrel recently changed their logo, and it's like this thing that everyone on Twitter is talking about, right? And I'm like, that's a dramatic change from what you are doing. You got rid of parts of what made you Cracker Barrel. Mm-hmm. My thing is that's the same exact leprechaun as they've always had. He's just now in a different stance. That's it. And I'm a traditionalist, Trev. You know, things like this normally are not things I'm a fan of, but like if they would have changed the look of him and he looks nicer now and he's got a smile now. No, he's a freaking Fighting Irish. I don't want to see that guy smiling like, hi, everybody. I love football. He still looks pissed off. He still looks like he wants to fight you. He's now coming at you with a football in his hand. I'm good with it because they didn't change the core of the mascot. Just change his pose. That's it. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is going away from tradition. This is enhancing your tradition.
Agreed completely.
Yeah. Is there a lot of talk about it? Like, is it something that people are pissed about? You know me. I get on social media to tweet out my stories. That's about it.
Listen, man, it's the same thing that whenever Notre Dame goes through a change, the OG traditionalists just hate.
Sure. And I'm usually that way, Trev. I mean, I'm usually an OG traditionalist, though.
It's the same people that hate the Jumbotron and hate the fact that there's a logo at midfield and hate the fact that the stadiums aren't wooden splintered benches that were there in 1934. And it's the same people that it's that group that they might as well just not even be the Fighting Irish anymore. Now they're the Running Irish. And it's like, all right, relax. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's really not. That's how I look at it.
Especially since as a school, they're still keeping the same mascot. I think that makes that argument even less. Like 100%. That was going to be my concern, is if they just got rid of that mascot. But everything they're doing here is still true to who that mascot is. Mm-hmm. Same hat, same face, same everything. He still looks ticked off like he wants a piece of you.
Yeah.
Right? He's carrying a football. All right. I think it's kind of sweet.
I do too.
Like, do you get where I'm saying? Like, what would have changed for me if he looked
made it
different?
More like if they would have made it more cartoony or changed the face like that, I get, because you are going away from the tradition.
The hat's the same now. I mean, exactly. We're on the same page. Yeah.
Super chat from Bob Alvey. Appreciate the super chat, Bob. Is it possible the quarterback intel for all sources was not aware of what was being asked of the quarterback at each specific practice?
No, I don't think so. I look, guys, I think part of this is things changed. CJ played better down the stretch and things changed. Like, Trev, I told you the latest intel I got, and I'm not going to put it out publicly, but it sounds like things changed. Like, guys, listen, everybody said, your sources got it wrong. No, I don't think the sources necessarily got it wrong. I just think the sources were maybe a day or two behind based on what happened in the Jersey scrimmage and the Saturday practice and the Friday scrimmage. That's where I think the sources were not caught up. But like, you look at all the people that were saying what we were saying, and everybody that has any real sources was saying the same thing. We were, Tim O'Malley, Tim Priester, everybody was saying the same. Pete Sampson, John Bryce, everybody that I know that's got very good sources, and we all have different sources. I heard Tim O'Malley somebody told me he was talking about this on his show the other day. He's like, look, we all have very good sources. We all have very different sources. And they were all saying the same thing. That doesn't happen if it was all wrong. I just think things change and our sources weren't maybe as up to date on it. I just think it changed. CJ went out in the last few days of practice and just separated. Isn't that what we were all asking for? He separated. And Kenny didn't. And that's what I think happened. So I don't think it's about what's being asked, because my sources weren't saying everyone was upset about the turnovers. I mean, there was a difference of opinion on that. I also can understand where Marcus Freeman is coming from as the head coach and a former defensive coordinator. He may not look at it the same way that Gino Guidugli and Mike Denbrock do. But eventually I was also told, the one thing I will say from my intel that I've got is that when the final decision was made, it was not Marcus Freeman saying, I want Minchie, but you guys want Carr, so I'll trust you guys. I was told that when they had all the data in and they sat down and talked about it, it was in fact a unanimous decision by the end, but it wasn't always that way, which we also said the other day, Trevor, is normal. Like, it's normal for coaches to not all be on the same page during camp on who should start, because every coach is evaluating it differently. An O-line coach may not care that this guy throws better passes. He may say, but this guy does a better job of getting us into and out of checks, and that's what I care about as an offensive line coach. I'm not saying that happened. That's just a hypothetical. That's all part of football. It's not just because not everybody agreed with what the head coach felt a week ago doesn't mean there was dissension in the staff. That's normal, especially when the head coach is on a different side of the ball background. That's normal. But eventually they all got on the same page because the data caused them all to get on the same page. The results on the field down the stretch caused them all to get on the same page. And ultimately, that's what it boiled down to. Good question, Bob. That's a very good question.
Getting into part 4 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. It's a Friday free-for-all mailbag. And Riza is getting us kicked off in this part with a super chat. Appreciate the super chat, Riza. Really appreciate the big super chat. You guys are the best. Keep it going. Playing on it.
Appreciate that, Riza. Very, very much.
Irish in Florida. Hearing a lot of people talk about the revamped Miami secondary. How do they match up with the receivers and tight ends from Notre Dame? Are we believing the hype, or is it all talk?
I don't know that I've ever seen a team this deep into fall camp be like, dude, we suck. We're going to be terrible. We're going to struggle. We're going to be bad. I mean, I think everybody's kind of like, hey, we're really hyped and we're excited and all that. And then you find out sometimes you're struggling because you're playing somebody that's really good and everybody else is going to struggle. Sometimes you're performing well and you maybe feel a little bit more confident in yourself because who you're going against is not very good. And you don't really know that. And I remember I've said this before, I remember watching how bad the defense was in 2017, thinking this is just going to be another Mike Elko's not going to be able to fix what Brian Van Gorder broke because it was that bad, because I'm watching the defense just get shredded every day in practice. And this is back when they would let us go to a lot more practices by that offensive line. And I remember talking to Mike Elko, and he's like, I don't love it, but I'm not like that upset about it because I know what they're facing, and we're not going to face anything like that. And he was 100% correct. And they just kind of did that to almost everybody that year. So that all factors in. Do I think Miami's secondary is going to suck as bad as it did last year? No. Do I think it's this dominant secondary and it's going to be that way in game one? No, not really. I don't think so either. But they brought in good football players. The question is how quickly are they going to be able to come together? That's really my question when it comes to Miami and their ability to go out there and perform, is how quickly will they be able to come together, and how will the communication be in week one, and have they been challenged the way that they'll need to be challenged against a team like Notre Dame? Those are all legitimate questions. Xavier Lucas is a good football player, Trev. We saw him be a good football player at Wisconsin last year.
Yep.
I mean, like there's guys there that can play. Keontae Scott's a good football player. Zechariah Poyser's a good football player. Jacoby Thomas is a good football player. Charles Brantley's a good football player. Ethan O'Connor's a good football player. None of them I don't think are great football players, but they're better than the guys they had last year. But the bigger change isn't the players, it's the coordinator. I think that was a part of the problem as well. But they're better. Are they going to be phenomenal? I don't think that either.
Yeah, I think the truth lies somewhere in between. When I look at, and I think that's the case for Miami as a whole. Do I think they're the number 10 team in the country and going to make the playoffs? No. Was I also a little harsh looking back on keeping them out of my entire preseason top 25? Yeah, probably. But I think the same could be said about their secondary. Do I think it's as good as what Miami fans are hyping it up to be? No, I don't. I really don't. But do I think they're as bad as what some Notre Dame fans are making them out to be? Also, no, I don't. They will be improved from last year. I think they have a better defensive coordinator. I do think that this personnel is going to be better. It's just it's the same question I have with any position group. Can you get a bunch of transfers to play cohesively together in one offseason? I don't know the answer to that.
In game one.
Yeah.
Do I think they'll be much improved by October, November? Much more so than they'll probably be in game one.
Sure.
That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. From Zircon, surely if Notre Dame goes 12-0, we would be a top 4 seed and get a bye?
I think it's highly likely. The only thing I would say, Trevor, is if there's a scenario where the SEC champ, the ACC champ, the Big Ten champ, and the Big 12 champ somehow are all 13-0 and undefeated, that's the only scenario where Notre Dame's not a top 4 seed. And even then, I think they are probably still over one of them, but it's not given. I mean, there's a couple Big 12 teams depending on based on their schedules, could go out there and say, hey, we're 13-0, they're 12-0. We won our conference. We should be ranked higher. And I wouldn't even necessarily be upset about that. Like, yeah, they all had to win that extra tough game, and Notre Dame didn't. That's why I've never had a problem with Notre Dame not being able to get a bye. I actually thought that was fair. That teams got to play a 13th game should kind of get rewarded for that. Notre Dame doesn't. But outside of that, it's impossible it's going to be borderline impossible for Notre Dame not to get a bye if they're 12-0. Just, I don't see how with this schedule, it's just not going to happen.
The only other scenario, and this is a bit of a stretch, but it depends on how the committee wants to vote on this. Like if the two teams, for example, like let's say my prediction for the SEC championship is Alabama versus Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play each other in the regular season.
Okay.
If for by whatever reason they're both 12-0 going into the SEC championship game and one of them loses, I could see the committee maybe not penalizing them for making the conference championship and playing that 13th game.
That's fair.
And so I could see something like that, but I also don't think there's going to be two teams from a conference both going.
That would also require that to happen in multiple conferences, or you have 3 undefeated league champs. And then and then so like ACC champ is undefeated, the Big Ten champ is undefeated, and then you have the 2 SEC teams, and then Notre Dame's still 5 going into that last weekend. Yeah, I can see that.
I would be shocked. But Zircon, if it makes you feel any better, I have Notre Dame projected to go undefeated, and I have them as the number 2 seed in my playoff projection.
Possible. Unlikely, but unlikely.
From Sydney Moore, I know Notre Dame will check Heatherman's Minnesota film, but how much can you really take from that with a different roster at Miami? Is it more about his tendencies and making sure you execute in week 1?
I mean, you look at what they recruit. Did that, in the portal, did they bring in things that kind of fit what they did at Minnesota last year? I mean, you look at his background. Who did he coach under? Who did he play under? You have a pretty good idea of things that he's going to like to do. You have a pretty good idea of the talent he's going to have in Miami and the things you got to be prepared for. A game like this requires you to go in with a little bit more in certain areas. You need a little bit more to your blitz beater package than what you just saw from him in Minnesota. You're going to need to have a couple things built into your pass protection scheme that are a little bit different than what he had at Minnesota, because you've got to be prepared for some other stuff. So yeah, you'll put a lot into it because that's where he coached. I mean, that's what he did. He's not going to – it's like Mario Cristobal would be an idiot to hire him to then come in and say, well, we're going to have to ask you to run something different than what you did at the school that got you here. Like, I know that you did a great job doing this, and that's why we're hiring you, but now that you've come here, we're going to ask you not to do that. Like, I know you ran a great air raid offense at this place, and we're hiring you to be OC, but we'd like you to run a triple option. Why'd you hire him then? And that's kind of how I look at it with Corey Heatherman. He's going to adjust his system to fit the specific personnel that Miami has, but he's going to be kind of who he is. And tendencies are still tendencies in a lot of instances, Trev. So I would say I think the last part, that's why I think the last part of what Sydney said makes a lot of sense. It's still about his tendencies, and it's still about you executing.
Yep.
But there's still a level of you've got to be alert. I think there's a lot more adjustments that kind of happen in that opener than what normally happens in like week 5, because you're learning a lot about yourself and the opponent that maybe you weren't prepared for.
100%.
Really good question.
Tom Frawley, hey guys, will Denbrock script the first 15 to 20 plays for CJ against Miami?
Probably. I do believe that Mike Denbrock's a scripter. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe he's a scripter. I could be wrong on that. I should probably look into that a little bit. But I would imagine even if he's not a big scripter, there's going to be some level of a script going into this game. So CJ Carr kind of goes in with some, hey, I know what we're going to do. I know what the looks are. I know, what I'm supposed to do here. I know I've practiced it. Because when you have a script, you don't just put it in and you look over it, on your sheet. You rep it out. You practice it during the week, and you definitely do it on your Thursday. You have your script period. When you do a script, you have your script period on Thursday, where we're going to go through, our team period is going through the script. And then on Friday, when you're doing walkthroughs, you will talk through and walk through the script. And well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of teams will. So when you talk about it in meetings, you go through it as well. So I think there's a lot of different things that go into it that helps you to kind of be prepared and comfortable with, hey, I know what the calls are. I know what the checks are. And then you also know part of a script is, hey, we get to 3rd and 2. And if our third play of the game, we're on 3rd and 2, and our script said we're going to go empty and throw something deep, or we're going to go 10 personnel and throw 4 verts. Okay, we're going to go to our 3rd down script, convert 3rd and 2, and then get back on track with play 3. Now we go to 10 personnel and run 4 verts. Or you may have your script settled, but you get the ball on your first possession at your -2. You say, okay, we're going to go with our coming out script. We're not going to go with our main script. And then if you pop a play and you get a first down, now, okay, hey, now we're on the script. Now play 1, and you get to call in. And that's something that now, especially with the communication in the ear, the coach, it's easier for Mike Denbrock to communicate that. You're 2nd and 2 at your -10 because you got the ball at, to start off at your own 2. Jeremiah, hand off to Jeremiah Love. He gets you 8 yards on first down, gets you out to the 10, then next play, and now you're out to the 19 or past the 20. All right, we're back on script. Let's go, whatever, blah, 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 and call your play. And you can communicate that a lot easier now, and you let them know, hey, we are now on the script. And you don't have to have a signal for that as well. You just get to call in. So good. You guys are crushing it today with great questions. Very well done. Got another one from Tom Frawley.
If you're the defensive coordinator of Miami, do you load the box and play man versus zone? Will CJ Seymour cover 2 or cover 3 with a field safety in the rat hole?
So let's talk about this. So you are going to the expression is load the box, and what that means is not necessarily you're going to put 9 guys in a box and defend. What it really practically means is your calls, your defense is geared towards stopping the run. So if you are a team that plays 2 high and single high, whether it's pre-snap or post-snap, you start 2 high, roll to single high, or start single high and roll to 2, whatever. I mean, however you're going to do it, or 2 high, you're going to get those extra hats. You're going to make calls that get those extra hats in the box. And, you're not just going to line up in a 4-4 with 4 linebackers. But what you may do is if you're a 4-2-5, you're going to walk that safety down. And now you have sort of that 4-4 shell to say, we're going to take away your easy access throws. We're going to load the box with numbers, and you're going to have to do something else. Your early down calls are going to be geared towards stopping the run, more maybe slants, twists, things like that. More run blitzes early in the game. And you're going to focus on stopping 4. Overload them with numbers and make them pull the ball and throw it. But you're not going to come up and play press cover 1 unless that's who you are. And so, it's actually easier for a team like Notre Dame to load the box with numbers because they're already at such a heavy cover, man cover team. But if you're like a cover 2 team, you're not going to all of a sudden switch to cover 0 or cover 1 and go play it that way. But you are within who you are going to do things that are going to allow you to be more aggressive stopping the run. You may bring more corner fires on first down against Notre Dame because either A, we're going to have a backside defender against the run, or a front side crash if they run to the boundary, or if they throw the ball off play action, we're going to have a guy coming backside hard off the edge to earhole the quarterback. But it's first and foremost geared towards getting that extra hat on the edge to funnel everything back inside should they run at you, or a chaser to cut off, backside runs, or to take the quarterback if you're in inside run. It's still designed on 1st and 10 to be a numbers game against the run. But any good run stunt is taught of what you do to run through that stunt to get to the quarterback if it's a pass play. It's not like, crap, we call it a run stunt, we're screwed. It then turns into a pressure stunt. You know what I mean? And so that's more of what it's like, Tom, is who you are. Everybody has built in, we got to stop the run on this down stuff into what they do. You just lean into that stuff early. So if Notre Dame's hurting you, then, you have the ability to go 2 high and play more 2 or quarters or combos because now they've hurt us. You already have that in your system. You're just now leaning more on that. Where early in the game, you're going to lean more on your stuff that allows you to get numbers in the box and hurt you. But it's not like loading the box, we're going to walk up 9 guys and say, I dare you to run. It's not quite like that.
Beefeater ND08. How is Beck as a runner? It occurs to me Beck has many game snaps with Miami as Leonard had with Notre Dame 1 year ago. The difference is Leonard had magic. legs. Carson Beck's an athletic kid. I mean, he's not like a stiff in the pocket. Again, he's not Jack Cohn, I guess, if you want to say that. But you go back and look what he did last year. His go-to wasn't running. I mean, he wasn't sacked a whole lot last year either because rushing attempts counted, or sacks count as rushing attempts in college. But he had 71 rushing yards last year and 1 touchdown. He definitely does not look to run. There have been games where if he has to escape the pocket, he will. Like, it's not like he's physically unable to, but he is nowhere near close the runner that Riley Leonard was. So as a runner, he's very much a pocket passer. He does his best work from the pocket, but he can extend plays, but he's not picking up a whole lot of first downs with his legs either. So, and plus with his elbow injury, I know that's not lower body, but I don't really know how many hits they're going to be wanting him to take either. And so that's something else to factor in. But I mean, as a runner, he is a pocket passer. I don't think it's something that Notre Dame's defense should be overly worried about, but something to keep an eye on of extending plays.
Very fair. He's, like Trev said, he's not a stiff in the pocket, but he's a passer. He's a passer, which is why he struggles sometimes when teams really heat him up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good observation.
From Patrick McGrain, is Miami's offensive line really that good, or perception because Ward making them look better?
I think they're pretty good. I do. I think they'll even be better this year. They're going to be a little older in a couple spots, and Inez Cooper's got some extra time in his belt. The left tackle, Markel Bell, was new to the system, I believe. Wasn't he a first-year guy last year out of JUCO? I believe that last year was his
Markel
first year.
Bell, the left tackle.
Markel Bell,
yeah, he
wasn't that his first year?
Yeah, it was. He was rotating.
Yeah. Right, with Jalen Rivers at left tackle, but like he was new to the system, I believe. He was a JUCO kid last year, not 2 years ago, that sat out and now he played. So this will be his second year. Francis Maunoa's going to his true junior season. Inez Cooper's going to his second full year as a starter. So yeah, I think it's very good. Do I think it's maybe as good as some people hype it up to be? It's not yet, but it could be. It's kind of like Notre Dame. I think it was Cole Kublik and Greg McElroy that were talking about Notre Dame having the number 1 offensive line in the country. And at the time, I think they could be. I wouldn't rank them there now. And Miami's sort of like that. They're not a top 5 offensive line now, but they could be. And Alex Mirabel's a really good offensive line coach as well. So, yeah, it's pretty darn good. If the Notre Dame defensive line plays well in the opener, you have reason to be very excited.
It'll have some weight behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
From Cam Ald, does the tight quarterback competition scare you in the fact that the winner, CJ Carr, will be looking over his shoulder at all times? When do you decide to commit to a guy versus picking one?
I mean, this is I think at this point in time, Cam, and I speak for Trevor because we've talked about this as well, but this is our biggest concern, is now that you've chosen your quarterback, whether for whatever reason, doesn't really matter the reason, is he going to go? Is he going to does he feel that you believe in him? Does he feel that you're his guy, that he won the battle? You're the quarterback, not you're going to start the game, and the first time you throw a bad pass, make a bad read, or turn it over, we're going to go to the other guy. Because if you do that, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will happen. Because usually when you're so panicked about something, you either freeze and do nothing and get sacked and don't do anything, or you end up doing the thing you don't want to do. And we said this before the announcement was even made. We said, whoever the starter is, you got to go with them at least for a while. With one exception, he comes off the field and he's just got that deer in headlights, he doesn't have a clue what to do look in his face. That's the only exception. But no, I whoever you go with, you got to go with, man. Let that player feel like you're our guy. And evaluate it as needed. As you go through the season, evaluate as needed. But that's what it's got to be. And we said that when we thought Kenny was going to be the starter. It's like, how fair is it to Kenny that he has to go play these 2 great defenses? And then if he doesn't play great, you go to the other guy. How do you know how that guy would have done against those 2 great defenses? You don't know. So this guy's got to go out to that game saying, hey, I just got to run the offense. I got to do my job. If I make a mistake, I don't have to be like, are they, you don't want that. You don't want that. That does not create a good environment, and it definitely doesn't create a real, hey, coach has my back thing with the quarterback. And you're going to take those chances.
Yeah, you got to give him room to grow, because the first time, and the same could be said for Kenny as well, but the first time CJ takes a meaningful snap in a game will be the first time. There's only so much growing that you can do in a fall camp setting, going against the same defense that sees you every single day. You can do the best you can to replicate high pressure situations and to simulate crowd noise, but until you're in it, you're never going to know how somebody's truly going to stack up. Got to give them time to grow. And I would have said that for either quarterback that won the competition. Either one. From Robert Bishop, how is that Leonard Moore goes into this season with more attention than Christian Gray? Minus a terrible USC game, doesn't Gray have more picks and game experience?
Yes, he has more picks and game experience, but that doesn't mean you're a better player.
Yeah, I mean,
and he doesn't have many. He's only got, one more pick?
He has one more pick, 2 less passes defended.
Because Gray had 3 picks last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Moore had 2.
Mm-hmm.
So then you count the one Christian had as a freshman at Pitt. So he's got 2 more interceptions, but it's 4-2. It's not, and as you mentioned, Leonard Moore has more pass breakups. I think Leonard Moore had more passes defense total than Christian, I think. But you say minus a terrible USC game. That wasn't the only game where Christian had some struggles. He had a couple rough plays against Navy, and then of course, Ohio State a little bit, and so it wasn't the only. He got beat early against Georgia. So I mean, it's not like you can just say, well, the USC game's the only game he played bad. He had stretches at times where it's like, dude, you got to trust your technique more. So my argument would not be, Robert, why is Leonard Moore getting more attention? That should be the case because Leonard Moore was just better, especially late in the year. He's just right now, understandably, a more highly rated prospect. The question should be, why isn't Christian Gray getting more love as a top corner? That would be something I would say that's fair. But I think it's justified that Leonard Moore is considered the better player right now.
Well, it just goes to show you this is why it's so difficult for the majority of people to evaluate cornerbacks, because you can't just go look at number of interceptions. Playing that position goes so much farther than how many interceptions that you get. Like, what was it? A couple seasons ago, Trayvon Diggs led the Jerron Bland led the NFL in interceptions with 11. Was anybody banging down the door saying that he was the best cornerback in the NFL because he had the most interceptions? No. And it's just like Christian Gray's a great player, and I think he's due for a great year. But Leonard Moore was, after Ben Morrison got hurt, their best cornerback last year. He was a freshman All-American. He was the FWAA Defensive Freshman of the Year. I mean, he's the one getting listed on all these preseason first teams, and I don't think it's for a lack of respect for Christian Gray. I think Leonard Moore's just that good.
I do think there are some that overlook Christian Gray. Absolutely, they do. But not to the point where it's like you should consider him better than Leonard Moore, as Trevor's saying. Right.
Well, I mean, and half of the people that overlook Christian Gray are a part of the Notre Dame fan base.
That is a good point. That is a very good point. Very good point.
Jason Rose. Hey, guys, how do you think the 2018 team would have fared in a 12-team playoff?
They would have, I think, gone exactly where they went. That was a really good football team. I think they had a problem beating the top 2 to 3 teams. They would have had a problem with Oklahoma. I think they still would have beat Oklahoma because Oklahoma's defense wasn't very good. But that Kyler Murray would have made plays against that defense. As good as Notre Dame's defense was in 18, you weren't going to beat Oklahoma 17-13. Or you weren't going to beat them, the way that you beat them in 2012. Like, you weren't. Clemson, Alabama. Clemson was the best team. That's the team they would have the hardest time with. Alabama's defense wasn't as good as Notre Dame, as Clemson's. But again, they would have had some issues defending at Alabama offense. So I still think they're a Final Four team. They would have beat a lot of the other teams in college football that year. You know, like maybe they get a bad draw, and let's say they get an Ohio State team that can throw on them or something like that with in the quarterfinals, and you just get that, like Oregon had just a bad matchup. Like Oregon was a legitimate top 5 team last year in the country. They deserve the number 1 seed, but just because you're the number 1 seed and deserve the number 1 seed doesn't mean that I think you're the best team in college football. And you earned the right to be the number 1 seed, but they were a top 5 team. You got a bad draw. It's life. That's part of playing in a tournament. You're going to sometimes get a bad draw, and sometimes you get a good draw. You know, like I've said before, I'm a Michigan basketball fan, and you go look at the teams that John Beilein had to beat. And remember the first Final Four team that he had with like Trey Burke and Glenn Robinson the third, and like Mitch McGarry and Tim Hardaway Jr. Like that team was loaded. And when you look at who they had to play in the NCAA tournament, you're like, boy, that team had to earn their way to the championship that year. In the tournament that year, Trev, if you remember, they had to beat South Dakota State, a really good VCU team. They had to beat Kansas. They had to beat Florida, and they had to beat Syracuse before they played Louisville. That's a tough draw. Well, then, like 5 years later, John Beilein gets back to the title game, and that year they played the 6 seed. Hold on a second. Hold on. I think they didn't play anybody higher than a 7 seed. Let me go to the tournament that season. But there was a bunch of upsets. Let me go here real quick. 2017-18 NCAA basketball tournament. But that year they made it to the title game with a far less impressive team. And because they kind of caught some breaks in the bracket. So they beat Notre Dame Michigan that year was the 3 seed. They beat 14 seed Montana, 6 seed Houston in a half court shot. They beat 7 seed Texas A&M, who beat 2 seed North Carolina. And then in the Elite 8, they beat 9 seed Florida State because 1 seed Xavier got knocked out in the second round. 4 seed Gonzaga got beat by 9 seed Florida State. So they beat that year the 14, the 6, the 7, and the 9 to get to the NCAA tournament or the Final Four. And in the Final Four, they played 11 seed Loyola Chicago. Like that's a whole different run than what you had to go through a few years prior when you had to play like really good teams to get to the championship game, where you're having to play like Kansas, Florida, Syracuse. Like VCU that year was like a team that a lot of people thought could upset Michigan, who didn't finish the year strong that year. So I just kind of laugh at that stuff. Yeah, that year they had Michigan that year beat number 5 VCU. They beat number 1 Kansas and number 3 Florida to get to the Final Four, and then they beat number 4 Syracuse. They didn't play a team 4 or higher in the next tournament run till they played the championship game against Villanova. That's how it goes sometimes. Little less in a football tournament where there's only 12 to 16 teams, but you never know. You're the 4 seed, and 12 upsets number 5, where you might not have beat number 5. Or sometimes the way the bracket goes is you get just a little bit of a tougher draw because this team was ranked lower because they were missing their starting quarterback for a month of the season and got upset. So they're the 6 seed instead of the 4 seed. And then you got to play them, but their quarterback's been healthy for the last month. And now they're playing like the preseason number 2 team again. Them's the breaks. So barring that, I think they're a Final Four team in 2018, with the one caveat being assuming Brian Kelly doesn't choke a couple playoff games away.
It's a pretty big caveat.
It's a pretty big caveat, yes. Pretty big caveat. Yeah. Trevor's waiting to say it. You can see in his face. Is Brian Kelly still the head coach?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if Brian Kelly's still the head coach, then I mean, quarterfinals maybe. If they host a bad team in the first round, then I think they win. But if not, he's gonna coach to not lose. He's gonna coach to not lose, not to win a championship.
I just think that team was good enough to still win those games, as they showed against Michigan early in the year. Like I think that team was different. It was a very talented team. It's almost true they would have got to the semis, in my opinion, in spite of Brian Kelly. Like that's kind of my. Speaking of. So literally our next question is this.
From Robert Bishop, do you think Brian Kelly will break their opening day losing streak, or will it be 0 for 4?
I think it's going to be 0 for 4.
Oh, I do too. I've Clemson going undefeated this year.
Yeah. I think this is probably his second best chance at. No, actually, you know what? Screw that. They should have beat USC last year.
Yeah.
And they should have beat Florida State in 2022. Like, the 23 game is actually the one game where, like, dude, that team was better than they were. Like, Florida State in 2023 was better than LSU.
Oh, yeah.
The other two were not. No. No. This might be the second toughest team they play in the opener.
I was just about to say, I think after the Florida State 2023, on paper, I think that this Clemson team could be in that discussion. I don't know in comparison to their other home openers, but no, I do think he goes over. Tommy Guns, every playoff prediction bracket I've seen has a G5 team at 12. Same with last year's prediction. Why is it just assumed among the masses that the team won't be seated higher than 12?
Well, a big part of it is just usually you don't have a G5 team ranked in the top 10 to 12. Last year was different. Obviously, even if Boise State doesn't get the automatic bye, they wouldn't have been the 12. They were one of the 4 highest ranked conference champs. That's the other part of it is the format. That last year's format's different. I don't know a lot of people like preseason. A lot of people had Boise or whoever as the 12 seed, but going into the playoff, the final thing, everybody was like, yeah, they're going to be seated higher than that most likely. But it's just because of where most people project that the best group of 5 team will rank. I don't know that anybody saw Boise being as good as they were last year. I don't. Honestly, I think if Oregon would have blown them out, I think they are the 12th seed. I think they would have been behind Arizona State if their only loss was to Oregon in a 30-point loss. Part of what people respected about Boise is, dude, the only loss they have was to the number 1 seed on a last-second field goal on the road. Like, that's legit. Whereas this year, for example, let's say that the 12 seed is like Navy, who I predict, or Boise. You had Boise, right, Trev? And they play Notre Dame, and Notre Dame beats them by 30. I think that, and they win the rest of their games. I don't think they're going to be the 8 or 9 ranked team in the country. And they also there's no Ashton Genty on any of those teams either, which also gave Boise a little bit of a boost last year. But most years the 12 seed should be the Juke Group of 5 team because they're the 12. Most years they're the 12th best team. UCF had a team in like 17 or 18 that could have been a much higher seeded team, maybe even hosts team. But more often than not, they're not.
Yeah.
That's why.
Agreed. Just your ordinary Joe, if you had to have CJ start one of the first 2 games and Kenny Minchie the other, which would you choose? Also, prayers for Angela and her caregivers.
Thank you for that, Joe.
If I had to,
it has to happen. So let's say the quarterback battle ends with, we're going to give each of them one start to see how they do. All right. So just to make it easier to try to think about this, because I've been thinking about this question, but we also want to do it in a way where we think we're giving the quarterback the best matchup for him to thrive in. How about looking at it that way, Trev? So you got to start one in one game, and you got to start the other in the other game. That's what we've decided as a staff we're going to do. We also would like to win both games. We'd also like to put both of them in a position where they're going to be able to play the best. Do you have an opinion on which one you'd like to go first or second in that regard? Does that help at all? Like with,
I mean, that's where my mind, I appreciate it. That's where my mind went to just matchup based. It's just like, look, I would have to go on the perception that other people believe Kenny Minchie to just be this dynamic dual threat guy for that to really change my opinion. So I still think both quarterbacks do their best work from the pocket. So I guess if I go based on that, I'd probably have Kenny start game 1 and have CJ start game 2. But I think against SEC opponents, at some point in the game, you have to be able to push the ball down the field. We saw that last year. Riley Leonard on that final drive, he had to hit Jaden Greathouse on that 3rd down. You had to hit Bo Collins on the back shoulder. With Kenny Minchie, it's first game. You're on the road. I think he could do some things with his legs that Although I don't think that he's just this Michael Vick of a runner like some people paint this picture of him. I do think that he can do more as a runner designed than what CJ can. And I think that's going to be valuable on the road in a hostile environment, first game of the year. So I'd probably start Kenny game 1 and start CJ game 2.
Well, I agree. That would be my order as well. There'd be a couple things I'd say matchup wise are also factoring into it. I think you're going to have more success running the ball on Miami than USC. And I think there's some things that Miami is going to do schematically that I think having a guy that can pull more on gives and things like that, some run game RPO type things could be beneficial. Where against A&M, I don't think that they will be as beneficial. To your point, I think you got to be able to throw the ball down the field. So, yeah, same page. Good answer. I mean, not that I'm surprised. I mean, that's why I hired you. You're the man, but still, very good answer.
No, I appreciate you. From Amy Spar. I wonder if CJ Carr's camp picks were intentional. Go for it. Then they get to see what he's capable of and what the receivers are capable of. It also gives them film for teaching.
Obviously, they weren't like intentional, but I don't think she means it like that. I think she means it like, hey, let's be aggressive. Let's see what we can do. Let's push the boundaries. That's exactly what Gino Guidugli said in his press conference like a week or two ago. Yeah. He's like, that's what he said. Interceptions of practice don't bother me. Now, I don't think he's like, okay, 3 straight interceptions. I'm super happy. Like, this is awesome. I love it. We're learning so much. But it's just like, okay, why did he throw that pick? I can live with that. Okay, like we're pushing the boundaries. Like, I don't think he was like freaking CJ throwing his pen across the room when he tried to throw the ball over top of Tay Johnson and he picked it off. And, like he probably was a little bit more mad on the one that he threw over the top that he didn't see the backside safety. I think he's probably a little bit more mad at the one Kenny threw that he didn't see the safety. Like, those are the ones you don't like. But the one where a guy was trying to make a play, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can beat Leonard Moore on this. Let's see if we can win on this particular throw. Hey, I want to see that kind of stuff. Yeah. But hey, if you're going to make that throw, hey, you threw that ball. Like, there's times when a pick will be he fits the ball in the tight coverage, but he throws it high and it hits off a guy's hands and gets picked off. Like, listen, I like the read, but if you're going to make that throw, you got to get that sucker about 7 inches lower, because if you get it where you have it, that sucker is going to get tipped, and we're going to see exactly what's going to happen. So I like to throw, but if you're going to make it, you got to get down a little bit. That's a lesson learned. Or, hey, when we are in a matchup where their corner's 3 inches taller than our receiver, we don't want to throw the ball that way. We want to throw the ball this way. So, Amy, I definitely think there was something to that.
100%.
In practice, and that's exactly what Gino Guidugli was saying. But that doesn't mean every interception and every mistake is like, no, it's cool, let's do it. Like, some of them, it's like, dude, this is football 101. When a corner squats on a hitch route, you don't throw the freaking hitch route. You're like, this is football 101, and you've now done it 3 times in fall camp. I'm not saying that that's literally 100% a made-up scenario. I'm just saying, like, that's when you start getting frustrated. But not like he tried to fit that corner route over top of the corner and smash, and he thought he could get it over top, but then he, quickly realized when that cornerback is 6'2.5" and has long arms and can run a, high 4.3 like Leonard Moore, that's not the matchup to do it against.
Right.
If you're going against like Micah Bell, who's like super fast, but he's 5'9.5", then maybe you take that shot, get that ball up, because he physically can't go up and get it. Like those are things you look at. And hey, if Christian Gray's on a guy, Micah Fields or Malachi Fields, then I'm going to teach him how to throw a certain ball against him differently than if Leonard Moore's on that guy. Not that one better or worse, but one guy's 3 inches taller and stronger and plays differently. So that's all part of it, Amy. So and it certainly gave him great film for teaching. That, as I said earlier, the thing you don't want is you don't want reckless turnovers and you don't want repetitive turnovers. You don't want to get into, week 3 and you're still throwing that same backside dig pick where you don't see the safety coming down. Like, dude, you've got to be alert for that. You've got to know when that safety does this, that guy's going to be coming back. When this safety rolls to the middle of the field, you got to know that guy from the backside is going to be coming down in the middle. That's what they do. You got to know that by now. That's all part of the learning process. But eventually, you haven't learned it if you keep doing it. So I think, Amy, you're spot on. Absolutely spot on.
Yeah. Pete Weber, Ian Book mentioned the NFL scouts at practice made note our roster looked better than Ohio State's and Michigan's. Who was allowed to be on the sidelines of the practices at fall camp, if not journalists?
NFL scouts, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely appropriate. It's not like, well, if you're going to allow NFL, no, you should allow NFL scouts at any practice they want to come to, because that's good for your players. And, especially, you get regional scouts and you'll get things like that during fall camp. And I mean, almost every practice we see, there's one practice we were at where they were doing Indy. They'd got done with stretch and they were doing Indy. And then Lauren Landau walks inside the field and he's surrounded by 6-7 NFL scouts, and they've got their notepads out and they're asking him questions and he's giving them data and talking about certain things. And that should absolutely be happening. Like, I'm okay with that. So Ian Book should be allowed to be at more practices than Brian Driscoll, because Ian Book earned that right to be at more practices than Brian Driscoll if he's in town, which I believe Ian is. So my issue is not that that shouldn't be happening. It's we should also get more. You know what I mean? Like, we should but anyway, the big takeaway was that Ian Book said that. And if he's relaying it correctly, I'd say that I'm not necessarily surprised by that. We've been saying this for a couple years now, that the recruiting is way better than the recruiting services think that it is. And it's better than Notre Dame fans who think that the recruiting services get it all right, think that it is. And then you've got some portal additions that are legit big time football players. I'm not shocked by this. We're talking how big Miami's offensive line is. Well, if Charles Jagasaw wasn't hurt, there's a chance that, depending on how, if Gerby Lambert's playing as well as he is at right guard, maybe he plays well enough at right tackle to make them say, hey, let's move Emil over to left tackle if Anthony App's struggling, for argument's sake. But, you got 6'6", 6'7" Charles Jagasaw, 330 plus, and then 6'7" Gerby Lambert at 340 plus. And you've got Will Black and Emil Wagner and Billy Schrouth. And I'm like, dude, that's as good of an offensive line as you're going to see anywhere. Big too. You're not going to go to a lot of places where you're going to see better athletes on the edge than what Notre Dame has in Boubacar Traore and Bryce Young and Josh Burnham and Logan Thomas. You're just not. You're not going to see many linebacker rooms that run like Notre Dame's linebacker rooms run. You're not going to see many corner tandems as good as Christian Gray. You're just not. And you're not going to see a whole lot of 6'7" tight ends that run like Eli Raridan. And we also all know about the running backs. So that's why, Trev, I was asked this question this summer. Who does Notre Dame have? I said, what was my bold take I said earlier this summer? Notre Dame has the best roster in college football. That was my bold take. Well, it's a bold take that I hold to. And I'm not saying that as a Notre Dame fan, because it does me no good to pump Notre Dame up knowing that they're going to not be as good as I think. But also, okay, well, maybe you're overhyping him because you're a Notre Dame fan. That could be true. But again, I would want to push back against that as a business owner alone, because eventually you keep saying, I think this, I think this, I think this, I think this, and you're constantly always way wrong. People are going to stop listening to you after a while. And so, like, when it's your analysis. So that's why I said that, and I stand by it. I absolutely stand by it. I don't think people realize how good this team is until they see it. I really don't. And if Ian Book is relaying that like faithfully, and I watched him say it, he wasn't like, he was just making a general point. Maybe he said it but I mean, he made it seem pretty clear like they've got a better roster than Notre Dame and Michigan, or Ohio State and Michigan, hands down. And yeah, I think that's true. Doesn't mean they're better at every position, but I think top to bottom, I think that's factual.
Full house backfield football 201 question. BD speaks about backside digs, etc. What is a play side versus backside? Is it field versus boundary, quarterback face versus his back, something else? Appreciate the show and your grace with this question.
This is a great question, because sometimes I start saying things that just as a coach, or as a player, you kind of know that maybe fans who didn't play the game or maybe didn't play that position don't know. So this is an awesome question. So play side versus backside, front side versus backside, has a lot to do with the read and the structure of the play. sometimes in a 2x2, isn't necessarily a play side and a front side built in conceptually. It's, hey, we're running smash to the boundary and we're running, a dagger to the field with our back as the check release to create that concept. Or we're running, this to this side and curl flat to this side, but we're running something else to the other side. And they're both meant to be primary reads. So front side, back side would then be determined by the quarterback's pre-snap read. This is the coverage structure. I'm reading here first. That's my front side, my play side. Back side would then be, okay, I'm reading here first. In other situations, conceptually, you have a front side and a back side. This is especially true, Trevor, in 3x1 stuff, where you've got your front side call, your 3x1, and then you've got your backside dig, your backside, because now that may be your read side. Hey, in 3x1 with a backside comeback, you get cover one. We're going to go, we like that concept. Let's go back to it. So it's still your read, but you've built in conceptually, this is our play side and this is our backside, or our front side and our backside. Even if you're going to go to the backside as your primary read based on the pre-snap coverage structure. And so in the instance of a backside dig, the idea being that you're going to have a three-man combo or sometimes a 2x2. And as I said, you can sometimes have a 2x2 where you have kind of two front side type of concept calls. And then depending on what the read is, you'll do that a lot against like combo coverages. But a lot of times what you'll also do in a 2x2 is you'll have a concept field side or play side, and then you've got your quote unquote backside concept. So like your backside high-low, your backside dig. If you're running like a play that was brought up the other day by a question, buy so hold was the dagger concept. So you have a seam route by two, a deep end cut, and then you've got like a crosser coming, underneath that. That's a backside route, but it's coming to be part of the backside concept. You may have your backside number one run a dig, maybe a corner, like something where he's got sort of an ISO route, or he may just run a backside dig because even though you get two in-breaking routes, they're not going to get close to each other. There's all types of things you can do, but you want to read this side first because it can attack multiple coverages. But depending on the coverage, it's going to tell you, am I reading the seam? Am I reading the dig? Am I reading the slide, the cross? Am I reading the swing? But I'm reading play side. If this happens, I'm coming back to the dig. So that's what backside also, I'm coming back to it. So that's what that means. And whether it's front side, some teams will call boundary and field. I don't know. I would assume. I never was part of a team where it's like front side was boundary side. There's times the call was to the boundary, but it wasn't structurally built field boundary. It was call side, backside, field side, or play side, backside. That's kind of where it looks. Is that fair, Trev? Anything else to add, or did I nail that one?
No, you crushed it.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Beefeater ND08. I feel like Notre Dame's rushing defense was the weakest part of the defense last year. What changes has Notre Dame made which make you think they will improve? More zone?
I think zone can be something that can help you be better against the run. It can maybe help allow your corners to be more aggressive coming up, which funnel things back inside. Maybe, if you're cover 3, you get more 8 in the box naturally out of what you do, perhaps. But I think you can get that out of cover 1 as well. I think what it really boils down to is just being geared towards being more gap correct, being more physical, being more, hey, we're going to cover all the gaps. Al Golden a lot of times was trying to create run-throughs, and so there would be some gap integrity issues at times. He was okay, and we talked about this in the Louisville game. There was times where he was totally fine with them trying to pop a draw for 7 yards because he thought that was a better option than letting them throw the ball over your head when you've got your, one of your starting cornerbacks is out against a really good throwing team. That's part of it. And sometimes to be great at one thing, you kind of have to sacrifice a little bit from it numbers wise. And that's going to allow you to be not as good at nothing. Notre Dame was still a good run defense last year. They just weren't elite. They were an elite pass defense. And except for like 1.5 games last year. So it's just about saying, hey, we're going to focus more on this being a strength of our team. The other part of it too is there were some mistakes last year that hurt them. Bad fits. Like I've talked about this, the long run by Travion Henderson against Notre Dame was a bad linebacker fit. Guy jumped in the wrong gap, opened it up. That's just when you play good teams against, Miami of Ohio, that might not have gone for 71 yards, but against, against Quinshawn Junkins or Travion Henderson, it will. Was it Junkins that had that run? Junkins may have had that run, right?
Yeah.
Against him, that it is going to go for 71 or whatever it was. So I think those are things you look at too, is being correct, being better tacklers, being more assignment correct, gap sound, getting more I think one thing Notre Dame could do to be better at this is just penetrate more. I've said before, as an offensive coach, the last thing I want to do is have my running back declare 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage where he's going to go. I want him on his track till he gets to or past the line of scrimmage. Like if he has to bounce 4 yards behind the line or cut back 4 yards behind the line, unless he's cutting back to a wide open hole, that's a win for the defense in some ways. Now you can rally to the football.
Yeah, I think personnel is also going to help that too. I mean, there was multiple times last year when Notre Dame started getting gashed in the run game, and it was 6'1", 280-pound Howard Cross and 6'2", 277-pound Donnie Heinisch in the middle.
Yeah,
man, it's like that's just not where their skill set is strongly suited. It's just not. So my other pushback would be, I don't think you're far off with this, Beefeater. I think the weakest part of Notre Dame's defense was just a pass rush with the front four. I think that was weaker overall over the course of the season than I think their rush defense was. They had bad performances against Penn State and Ohio State, but they still held Georgia to 62 rushing yards. Still held Indiana under, I think, 80, and they had their moments over the course of the season, but pretty consistently they could not get a pass rush generated with their front four outside of, I guess, Stanford and Florida State, arguably the two worst teams on their schedule. So.
And Georgia.
And Georgia. Yeah, I know. Honestly.
Yeah.
Ben Tarnowski, for both of you, if you're the offensive coordinator for this team, what is your ideal opening script for the Miami game?
I mean, so much of me wants to just be like, I'm coming out throwing deep on play one. Like I would, but I mean, if I'm thinking practically early in the game, try to establish run game, try to get some easy throws in for CJ Carr. That doesn't mean short throws. It means easy throws, meaning I've got a read. Like we're going to get in. If we get a one-on-one with this guy, we're going here to give a shot to stretch the field, right? If they want to go play cover one, safety cheating to the field side, we're going to take a backside go to Malachi Fields and just take a shot. Screen game maybe to slow the pass rush down if they're heating you up. But it's really establish the run, get some easier reads for CJ, and then go from there. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I would have a good idea of what gets CJ in a rhythm, what he's the most comfortable with. I would look to establish the line of scrimmage. And at some point, if we get into a 2nd and 4 scenario, I'm going to just have it built in that we're taking a play action shot downfield.
Yeah.
But I think that's a favorable down and distance to do it.
Yep, agree.
Peyton Mathis, do you guys think the Texas A&M game will be harder this year versus last year? I mean, I think it depends on how we look at this, Peyton. Yeah, harder environment? No, obviously not. They're playing at home. More stakes, you could make the argument because I think Notre Dame will be ranked higher, and I think Texas A&M will be ranked higher than when they played last year. Notre Dame was ranked 7th, and Texas A&M was ranked 20th last year. I think Texas A&M by this point could be a borderline top 15 team, depending on what happens. And Notre Dame, if they beat Miami, the number 10 team, as the number 6 team, I think they might be in the top 5 by the time this game rolls around in week 3. But I think it'll be harder from a matchup perspective. They finally have a quarterback and an offensive coordinator that fits what each person is good at and what they excel at. Mike Elko's going into year 2. And I think that the defense as a whole, despite them losing some stars to the draft, I think it might be a little bit of addition by subtraction in that you don't have as many stars, as many egos. I think the D-line is going to perform better. So I do think this matchup will be harder in different scenarios than last year. Environment won't be harder. You'll already have one game under your belt, but outside of that, I think the matchup individually will be tougher.
I agree with everything you said except the last part. I think it'll be equally as tough as it was last year. That was a battle last year. Yeah. Notre Dame won by 10, but it was a touchdown game or tie game the whole game. I think it's what it is it's going to be I think it was their toughest game last year, matchup wise. Last year, they played terrible against Northern Illinois. If they'd have played against Northern Illinois, against A&M, the way they played against Northern Illinois, they'd have lost by 2 to 3 touchdowns against Texas A&M last year. If they'd have played that bad, I think it was their toughest game last year. I think it'll be their toughest game this year. I think both teams are better, and it's potential to still be a dogfight. I think A&M is going to be better offensively for all the reasons you mentioned. Better fit. I think Notre Dame's defense is also going to be better. I think that Notre Dame had a tough time with their D-line last year. Maybe not as tough of a time this year, but then I think Notre Dame has some more favorable pass game matchups. I think there's some different strengths and weaknesses between the two teams. But I think it's going to be equally as tough as it was this year as it was last year. Like just because the standpoint of that was a 60-minute battle last year. And it wasn't until Christian Gray's 4th down breakup that Notre Dame was able to kind of end it. It was a 13-13 game in the 4th quarter. So I think it's going to be just as tough as it was last year. I think if anything, it's going to be a battle between two better teams than what they were at this point in time a year ago. That's what I would say. So that's a great question. Great question. And I think that's a good one to end on, Trev.
Well, listen, folks, that is going to do it for the Friday free-for-all mailbag. I know Brian is going to be back on Monday with the interview that they got going on.
We will both be back. You'll be with me on Monday.
Both of us?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cool. We will be back on Monday at 1 p.m. All the more reason to be subscribed to this channel. I guess I should.
Oh, because you're going to be on the show. There's more reason to. Oh, I see how it is. You're going to be on the show. All the more reason to subscribe to or something.
No, I was teeing up a joke, but see, you just had to interrupt me, Brian. Just had to interrupt me.
I'm so good at it, though, Trev.
I know. Oh, I know.
Well played. Well played. I love it.
All the more reason to be subscribed to this channel, like I probably should be, to know if we're going live on Monday at 1 p.m. Also, be sure to hit that like button on your way out of here. Look, the guys are getting ready to tee off. And IB Nation Sports Beat later on tonight in 3 minutes. Be sure to check them out. I think they're going to be talking about a projected depth chart, like guessing who's the depth chart order is going to be tonight. That's on the docket for them. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, college football is on tomorrow at noon. We will be watching college football tomorrow. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of threads on the board going on about Farmageddon, and I guess maybe Stanford and Hawaii if they want to watch that game too. But until Monday, till the next time that you see us, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. Make sure you're subscribed to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. And we'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.